Hello, Guardians, and welcome to episode 111 of Podcast vs. Enemies, a Destiny podcast dedicated to the PvE sandbox. We've got another great episode lined up today, and we are excited to get into it. Court, what have you been up to in and out of Destiny this past week?
Hello, lads. Yeah, I'm pretty excited for this episode. Been doing some master raid challenges and a few raid runs with yourself, Saint. Very fun raid challenges. I think once you get into the thick of it, it starts to all, just get back into autopilot for all these challenges. But yeah, got a few adept rolls. They are dropping double or even triple perks, which is something we weren't privy to before the final shape launched, and that just came out of the blue. So that's pretty fun. Exciting. We'll talk about that later. Unlocked the Titan exotic class item. Was just kind of putting that off for a while, but for an upcoming episode it'll make sense. And over on my kind of side projects, my damage stacking infographic, pardon me, will be out around about the time this episode goes out. I'm not 100% sure when that'll get published, but it'll be pretty much on the day or the day after. So that's been quite a while since I've been kind of plugging away at that, just redesigning it, because the first one was pretty happy with, but this redesign one looks a lot better, just up to kind of scratch with the other infographics. Then I'll take a small break, and then I'll get back to the subclass infographics I keep teasing. Impetus, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing well. I'm a little tired. I've been helping my partner move out of her house. She needs to be out by the end of the month, so this was the final weekend, the final push. Very sore from lifting a lot of boxes. I've always prided myself on being a minimalist, but this past month has really reinforced that I did make the correct design choices all those years ago. No, my partner has an excellent taste and style, but there's a lot of things. She is downgrading to a smaller house, and she's very excited about that, but we do need to get rid of quite a few things. I've also gained a ton of new stuff, which has been quite nice on my end. So inside of Destiny, though, I have also unlocked Stoicism, which is the Titan class exotic. I ran that with Court, so I now have all three of those unlocked. Do need to start getting rolls for the Titan one as well, but yeah, they're there, and so I'm able to go at least unlock more of them now when I want to. Most of the week, though, I have been running the battlegrounds for the episodes, just trying to get a few of those red borders to unlock some of the weapons. Was really trying to go for that scout rifle to get that just unlocked for crafting ahead of its buff. I am sitting at 3 out of 5 red borders. They've not been very generous to me. I did unlock the sword, Ill Omen. I'm not going to craft that just yet, but yeah, I probably do need to get back in there and run those a few more times to get a few more red borders. Just have not been lucky, but that's what I did for most of my week. Saint, how about yourself?
It's been a pretty busy week. I did some master challenges with Court. He said we get through the first 3 of those pretty quickly before we ran out of time that night. So feels good. Got to go back this week. We're still in the all challenges for another week after this episode comes out. So if you haven't done that yet, you still have another week to go through all the master raid challenges before they start rotating. So be going back this coming week to do the last couple of those. Got a pretty solid risk runner ergo sum roll, which is something I've been looking for a really long time. You can get a lot of the sword to drop, but getting the one that you're looking for, it can be a hell of a task, which, yeah, another thing we'll be talking about a lot in an upcoming episode. More class item farming as well. I finally got one that is a combination of Star Eaters and Eternal Warrior, which is pretty good for dealing Titan DPS if you want to go with the right, you got like a Edge Transit and your Twilight Arsenal and a bunch of stuff like that stacked up. You can get a pretty solid DPS out of that setup. So I was, grateful to get a couple of good pieces of gear there. The hardest stream in the game in the books, that's just very hectic. I will say that at least. Hardest in the game? Yeah, you got tough competition from Glassway, like in its prime. I think is still going to hold that crown. There's a few others back there in the day that were really difficult, but yeah, it was chaotic. And then Red Dead Catalyst was the last thing I did this week, which is ridiculously strong in the Crucible on a weapon that is already very strong in the Crucible. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. We've got some more interesting stuff to cover. Before we do that, though, we want to give some shout outs to people that support the show. Court, who do we have to thank?
Yes, we've got a few PvE patrons. So this is up to date as of July 28th. We like to thank Malross Jade, Clancy 5000, and over to those that are just displayed with their real names. We're just going to abbreviate to their first. We have Alex, Andre, Nick M, John T, and Scott M. Thank you very much for joining. And they join our PvE Grandmasters, who are Dark Wizard 85, David, Deacon, IMK Rose, Jellied Puppy, The Shazo, The Puckster, The Mirror, and This Moment. Thank you very much for all your great support. You can send us all kinds of feedback directly to any of our socials or via our Discord server, Twitter, which is at PodVSEnemies, or on our Patreon. You can find links in the show notes. Positive, critical, and constructive feedback helps with the trajectory of the podcast and how we present and break down builds, activities, and much more in the PvE sandbox for all kinds of Destiny players. We also want to extend a special thanks and appreciation to everyone that supports PvE by downloading, listening, and discussing our show and directly supporting us via Patreon. Speaking of Patreon, if you'd like to support us, you can click on the link to Patreon found in the show notes of this episode. You'll get access to members-only channels in our Discord server, behind-the-scenes content, text write-ups of weapon breakdowns, input on the future of the show, and much, much more. I will also just quickly say, I've seen a few comments about where do people ask us questions or for the podcast. You can just send us that in any of our DMs or socials, Twitter. You can put it in the Discord server or on Patreon. We do have those kind of bi-weekly or 3 times, or I should say 2 times a month, where we just get, send a comment on the Patreon and just ask sort of general, what would you like to talk about or for us to talk about on the show. You don't need to wait for us to do that. You can just send us any questions at any time, just via our socials. All right, and Tis, what are we talking about this week?
It's raid night. We are talking about Salvation's Edge, the newest raid, the Final Shape raid. We're going to be giving our impressions. We're going to be talking about tips and recommended builds. We are not doing a full breakdown of each of the encounters. Again, being a podcast, that does not translate too well for our listeners. So we'll be touching on some strategies, some ways that we kind of handle a few things through our tips and our builds, but we're not actually going to go encounter by encounter here. And then, of course, we will be breaking down our raid weapons for Salvation's Edge. As for some housekeeping here, we will be putting up some notes, some breakdowns, text breakdowns really on the Patreon for Aberrant Action, Corrasion, and then another exotic weapon breakdown from Court. I will let him mention that if he wants to. Do you want to keep that one a secret, Court?
Keeping that a secret. It's a secret to me because I'm not sure what I'm going to go for.
Wow.
There's many. There's a few I'd like to pick, but the last one was Wicked Implement, but this time I'm not 100% sure.
All right. Well, we'll all tune in to find out, including Court. We'll all tune in to find out what that next exotic weapon breakdown will be, but that is coming shortly here. We did have some news from the Twid that we want to bring to your attention in case you missed it, stuff that's relevant to our side of the sandbox here. So exotic class item drop rates are getting improved. Again, this is a little controversial, but we are just going to present the actual changes here. You will get 2 exotic class items to drop on your first dual Destiny clear of the week. And that was that per character? Not per account? Yeah, per character. So you can earn a max of 6 just by doing 3 dual Destinies, 1 per the 3 classes here, or characters. Yeah, characters. There will also be a higher drop rate from overthrow chests. So this seems to be their response to the completely legitimate strategy that people have been using where they visit the Pale Heart a whole bunch over and over again. You will actually need to progress through overthrow now to get that higher drop rate. And it will be higher once you get to tier 2 and tier 3 specifically. And of course, in conjunction with that, they have lowered the drop rate from random Pale Heart chests. So now you have a reason to go get a lot of Ergo Sum rolls, because you'll also be getting your class item rolls by getting to that into the Pathfinder there, and also your tier 3s. So just exotic drops for everybody. We're also getting Brave Weapon Focusing. I think they had mentioned that these weapons would come back in some fashion from post Final Shape launch, and so this is going to show up now at Zavala. You can select the Brave weapon of your choice, and that will then guarantee that when you go into Onslaught, you now have a 60% drop chance for your focused weapon, which was up from the 50% that the original attuning was. Shining weapons, of course, are not available. So, yes, this does not cost anything for you to select the weapon that you want to focus at Zavala. You just go up there, you select the weapon that you want to focus for, and it's a 60% drop chance now when you go and run Onslaught, which is found under the Vanguard tab in your directory. So, very, very nice. That should make some things a little bit easier. We're also going to be posting a few more Brave weapon breakdowns on the Patreon, some text ones. We do have the Midnight Coup one up right now, but we will be expanding on that in the near future. So that is it from us on the housekeeping side and our show outline. Let's actually dive into Salvation's Edge, starting with our thoughts and impressions. All three of us did participate in the contest mode. We were not going for placement, mind you. I think it was very much just a completion thing. Court and I were on a team. Stain was running with his team. It was definitely one of the most challenging experiences, probably the hardest gaming experience I've ever done. I won't speak for you two, but yeah, got our ass kicked, didn't we? There was a lot going on. It was a long, hard marathon of a battle there, but tons of fun here. We've also gotten to do a few runs after contest mode. We've also started working on the master challenges. How are we feeling about all of it? I'll pass you off to Saint here for it. Now that you've gotten to play it on pretty much all the difficulties, you've gotten to do some of those one-off challenges, you've gotten to do the actual triumphs related to the master difficulty. You've also gotten to Sherpa some people through it. You've also gotten to just do regular runs of it where you weren't even trying to do any challenges necessarily. How are you feeling about it?
I will definitely echo the sentiment that this is the hardest day one raid that I have attempted by far. Not even, I wouldn't even say it was like that close. There were some difficult ones in the past, no doubt. Going through, going through like King's Fall and all the, the reprise ones were not that bad. I missed Crota because I was moving that weekend, so that was unfortunate. And I hang on to test the raid before that, Lightfall raid, which Rooted Nightmares is what I'm trying to think of. So I hadn't done a day one raid in a while, like almost a year, actually more. And it was a tough wake up call. Trying to jump back in there and just knock out Salvation's Edge real quick was really not it. I think that the only other one that I had about this hard of a time in the past was maybe Vow the Disciple. Trying to learn the third encounter of that was a bit chaotic, and there was a lot of desync issues with Rolk in the final fight, and it was annoying. Still not this difficult, I wouldn't say. Just a lot of really hard checks. Just the need to like keep your head in a swivel on all the encounters and be figuring things out pretty quickly, and it was also just really tough. We made it all the way to the Witness. We made it through Verity on contest. We made it to the Witness with I don't know, maybe like 15 or a half an hour left or something like that. And then came back, the next day or whatever, 5 hours later after we slept, and then cleared the Witness, which I can't remember exactly what it was, but when I looked that up after we had killed the Witness, and this is like reset had hit, we had taken a break for like 4+ hours, and then we had come back and killed the Witness. We were like number 900 something. Not even 1,000. And we're talking, it's almost 5.5, 6 hours after reset, and there are still not even 1,000 people had cleared this yet, which is, if you know kind of historic raid numbers and stuff like that, insane. Okay, general thoughts and impressions. Contest mode, yeah, that kicked us down, and then just kept kicking. I do enjoy the raid. I think that there's some interesting stuff where it's like, it can kind of feel like it has long, transitions at some points, but for whatever reason, it doesn't feel quite as bad as Rooted Nightmares. Maybe that's just a perception thing, or maybe I just haven't run it enough times yet to get annoyed by it, but that definitely is a thing. I think that there's a solid balance, and I think it lived up to the name of being the end of the 10, Light and Darkness saga. It had to be like a massive deal raid. I would say that it like executed on the hype and like difficulty level of like fighting the Witness, including the Witness fight itself, which you can kind of get trained up on even if you've never run the raid. You've done Excision a few times, which I also think is a good thing. And we've seen a little bit of that outside of raids in the past, where that you see raid mechanics show up in other things like the Seraph mission, or Revision Zero mission. I can't remember exactly what that's called, but that uses like Deep Zone Crypt, mechanics a little bit. And Deep Zone Crypt had just gotten refreshed. That was great. But now this is like coming out right at the same time, able to teach people mechanics for the boss fight before you even get there in the raid proper, which is great. Yeah, I don't know, when talking about specific encounters, I think that watching people try to solve Verity was hilariously difficult and drove people to insanity, and that is definitely something that will live on just as infamously as Vault in Last Wish, except this time there's way more people that were engaged with it instead of a much more limited team, because the way they did like the leveling and all that. It was just insane trying to watch all that play out, and it still can be tough, teaching that to people. And we were just talking about this a little bit before, but getting down to the topic of like Sherping people, I think that there's a lot of methods to use, especially on the last couple of encounters, Verity and the Witness proper. And I'm definitely attracted towards ones that are more foolproof, even if they're slightly slower, because I find that it's just easier to bring people into the environment of trying to learn something that maybe is not quite as efficient, but is more consistent. Is like definitely something I've started to value there going through that. Maybe that will change over time, but for the time being, yeah, going through like a couple of sugar runs, I'm definitely more, kind of shifted towards the strategies that are maybe take a few more shape swaps, like the stacking and distributing, but don't require like any communication when that's happening. I'm really interested in stuff like that. And then, yeah, Witness damage phase. Hopefully you've done Excision, because that's like the only thing that's really going to prepare you for that. And I don't know. It's a wild raid. It lived up to the hype. The weapons, I'm quite favorable on, and we'll be talking about that in a minute though, so I'll leave that there for now. That's enough of a rant on Salvation's Edge. Court, where you at? How you feeling? Learning the raid, contest mode, loot, lore, where you at?
So contest mode was a lot of fun. I'm definitely in the same camp of, yes, it was kicking our asses, but I was having a great time. I think we Impetus and I's team, we hit a brick wall in Encounter 2, and to be honest, I don't care that we didn't get beyond that, because it was just a great experience, because it's been a while since I've done a day one contest outside of Root of Nightmares, which I know we've talked about before. It was not the best experience in terms of difficulty. Before that, I can't remember if I even... Yeah, I think I did do King's Fall. I'm not sure if I did Crota, but in terms of like non-reprise raids, I think it was maybe Deepstone Crypt was the last one that I'd properly done, and I've either took a break or I was down with COVID with Vow Disciple. I would have loved to have done contests with that, but obviously couldn't. So yeah, a fun experience. Like, totally enjoyed it. I think I put a tweet out during that. Like, it was like 6:30 a.m. my time, so I'd been up for probably close to 24 hours, and I was just like, yeah, like, I'm getting my ass beat here, but it's just such a great experience. I mean, we're times where we're getting a bit, tempers flayed, and we're having just some good banter, but yeah, an absolute great experience, and that's kind of what I thought Vow Disciple would have felt if I was part of. In terms of the actual raids, just kind of beyond contests, just once you get into the thick of it, I am pretty favorable with the raid. I in terms of ranking it, I think I'm still trying to learn a lot of the kind of mechanics just to really tighten things up, the efficiency aspects, what's the best way to do Verity, and what's the best way to do the final encounter that Saint was talking about there. But I think it is a very fun raid, but I think the transition between each encounter is what's starting to get me now. After doing a few runs, it starts to slow down the pace, and like I'm a big fan of like when you go from it's encounter 3 straight into encounter 4, there's very little transition period, and that's what I like. That's that kind of like, okay, I'm still buzzed from completing encounter 3 straight into encounter 4. Yeah, it's Verity, which can be it's definitely the most complex encounter that we've had for some time, but the actual raid experience is a lot of fun. Not sure where I'd rank it. It's certainly up there. I still think Vow of the Disciple overall is my preferred raid. If someone was to say, what's your preferred raid at the moment? Vow of the Disciple, especially after coming off that from Pantheon a few months ago. But I think it is a banger of a raid. We've got the weapons that we'll talk about later on as well. And I'm just actually looking at some of the infographics that a few folk have made from each encounter, like the maps, that kind of stuff. Like visually stunning. Like the scope is really up there. This is the first 5 encounter raid that we've had for a long time, and it certainly gave me vibes of Last Wish. I can remember partaking and then quitting because it was just like, whoa, I'm way too low level for this, and watching the vault encounter, and it was like as soon as I started clocking on that people were stuck on a particular encounter, I was like, oh, this is just another Vault 2.0 situation, so fun experience, really fun. I want to keep playing it, but I understand that, it's quite a long raid. I can see why people might just want to do first or second or fifth encounter. They want to maybe just skip around, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. But the big critique that I would have is definitely the transitional periods between each encounter. I think that just starts to it slows you down. And just the pace and like that buzz starts to dissipate when you get from like encounter 1 to encounter 2. You're like, oh, okay, well. Very fun raid. This is obviously our big expansion raid for who knows, and we don't know anything about our future raid, whether it's a reprise or a new one. So this is it for the time being, plus our current collection of raids. But yeah, I'd definitely like to go back in and get some more runs. Impetus, what's your vibes and impressions?
I'm not the biggest fan of it. I do think Vow is higher. I think I just had more fun doing the boss fights from Pantheon. Like that was kind of my ideal raid, was just squaring up with a bunch of different bosses from a few different raids and going toe to toe.
We have been spoiled with that.
Yeah, it was kind of a weird dynamic to go back and do a very mechanically intense raid. Not that I think the mechanics are bad for Salvation's Edge. I like that we're under a time limit for each encounter. I thought that was a really cool touch for the time to final shape. Was really got me stressing out right from the start. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of just like the actual boss fight sections. Like I would love to do the Herald of Finality and the Witness fight in a Pantheon setting. I think those are very fun. I think that would be a real test of the fire team strength there. But for the other encounters, I mean, even Verity is just like, okay, this is fun, but I don't like doing them. When I think raid night, I more think the boss fights. I'm more thinking about really pacing out ammo stuff because and revives and stuff because we're going up against a boss, not because we're doing a bunch of mechanic heavy stuff. I don't know. That's just that is my preference. I don't really have an in-depth explanation why. I just prefer the boss fights over the mechanic encounters. So and I think especially because we're coming off of Pantheon, I think if Pantheon hadn't been out and I went into this, I would probably be really excited to have such a mechanically complex raid. But after coming off of a month straight of just boss fight after boss fight with escalating difficulty and a ton of adept loot that was really wonderful to get and all sorts of other drops. Yeah, it's weird. I am not quite into I think it's more encounter 3 is the one that kind of really just ruins me of Salvation's Edge. I do not enjoy that relay race aspect of it. Verity, of course, is still new to me, and I think that's why I like it. I do like that encounter 1 really throws you into the mix right at the start. There's no kind of onboarding. It really is a very hectic intro to the raid, and I like that. I think it's very appropriate for what to expect from the next 4 encounters, but it just doesn't excite me in the same way. But overall, this is definitely in my top tier of raid. I would still probably give it to Vow of the Disciple. There's a part of me that just really hopes that one day I get to play a Last Wish at least at my light level. Again, that's why I liked Pantheon, was I finally got to fight Riven in a hard setting where it wasn't just a cheese. I would love to do that with some of the older raids if get to play those. But yeah, I still like Salvation's Edge. And again, the loot is really cool. The armor team, not quite sure what they were cooking up, but they were cooking. They were just making something for Verity is really how I would describe that armor set. It got to stand out in a nice way. But yeah, our armor set isn't quite doing it for me, but I love the weapons. I love the eyes on the weapons. They look and sound cool. So,
man, yeah, the armor set, there are a couple things like on the Titan set, I actually don't mind the way that it looks at all. But there's something that really bothers me, and that the shoulder pieces have the orange resonance glow, and nothing else on the armor set, I don't think, has that same resonance glow. Maybe I just missed it with the class mark. I maybe go back and double check on that, but it just is odd to me, because if you look at something like the Crota set, well, the Crota set is like that Age of Triumph set, and it's very dramatic, and it has all the weird floating bits, but like it's very cohesive within the armor set. That all the pieces have kind of like the hints or the major component of like the floating and the neon green. And then on this set, it was like just this one piece, and that's just so odd to me that they would choose to do it that way. And I even think that that's a great thing to do that makes raid armor stand out. Like I remember the old Prestige Leviathan raid armor had the purple hologram kind of looking glow to it, and it was really cool. It's just cosmetic, but it sets off this like hard mode raid version of the armor a lot. And yeah, last couple of things I'll say. Definitely feel like this raid was made for people that raid a lot in Destiny. This is a raid made for the raiders, right? In juxtaposition of our previous raid that was much more open to like getting people into raiding and understanding raid mechanics. Yeah, the mechanic heavy nature of it and all that stuff is, yeah, it just totally seems like it was made for the people that are into raiding. And the last thing I was going to say about the loot that I forgot to mention is the raid memento, which is still bugged.
There's a raid memento?
Sad. Yeah, I know that you had heard about that, but I don't know. It turns out that it is real, in fact, and some people have gotten it, but it's bugged, and that's sad to see something that we've been looking forward to for so long get just have to deal with a bunch of bugs and be kind of behind a frustrating barrier. We'll hopefully see an improvement on that.
Yeah, that is weird. Yeah, can't remember if they commented on that or not, but all right. Shall we get into the tips then?
Yeah, we'll just cover some general stuff here. Not gonna get super into the encounters like Impetus said. Court, what are some tips that you would give people that are looking to learn the raid for the first time or just become more familiar with the raid?
Yeah, so this one really importance of communication. I'm not pointing any fingers. I'm not going to call anyone out because it's it's the raid experience. But I definitely noticed that in a few runs that we've done, runs that we've recently done, Impetus and Saint, where if there's a lot of overlapping communication, then that just causes a lot of unneeded just problems and issues. And this raid, just with the amount of mechanics that are going on, there's a lot of boss encounters that have got mechanic like kind of part like half of its mechanic, half of its boss DPS. So really, like, communication is key here, whether that's on microphone or if it's with the text chat. Very important to use both of those things, but use them both sparingly and just for important highlights. I think Verity is the big one where there can be and there will be cross communication with the way you've got it set up. So it's just a case of being very patient with yourself and your teammates. We're all still learning. I will happily put my hand up and say, look, I'm not as confident with Salvation's Edge versus, say, Root of Nightmares or Crota or Kingsfall. This is our most recent raid, of course, but it's, I'm still learning. I'm still learning the best strats, still learning the most efficient way to do each encounter here. So yeah, communication really is key here. Funnily enough, the next point here is working on your fashion, and we are being seriously legitimate here. It is very important for Verity. So there are multiple websites and apps out there that can help or calculate Encounter 4 for you when you're doing the dissecting of the 3D shapes. Engram.blue has both a Fireteam fashion display and a shape calculator. They do use different pages. Alternatively, you can use NinjaChicken737.com, who has also both of those, but they're also on the same website page. So if you have multiple monitors, if you can pull up a tab or a phone, then those options are there for you just to make it easier. You can learn Encounter 4 just by, like, the more you play it, the more you can see how you can dissect the shapes. But the fashion part just takes a lot of that kind of... before I would write stuff on a on a pad of paper or put it in like a voice chat channel for the fire team to look, here's the ghosts that we have, and here's the helmets or the cloaks that the hunters have. So very important to have very distinct, unique looking pieces of armor and ghosts for it when it comes to Verity. I was on Titan the other night with you, Saint, and Pyrogales is one of the very unique ones where it's very obvious that I'm wearing Pyrogales, but it still has that kind of, there's a small flame coming out of the Pyrogales with the actual statues. So it was quite obvious that me as the Titan had Pyrogales, and I had quite a spiky ghost. So there's apps, websites out there to help you with that. Just make sure your fashion is on key. This is also not a 15-minute in and out adventure, so make sure to plan ahead. This is going to be a pretty long slog. If you want to split it up into 2 or 3 different days or different sessions, then do that. But like, again, we're all still learning the raid. We're all still trying to work out what's the most efficient. So, like, I've been in this raid multiple times, 2+ hours, 3 hours perhaps, and that's fine for me. I can really split up a lot of my free time to allow that, but it's not like a Crota Zen where you can zoom through it, or something like, try to think of like a very fast raid. I suppose Root of Nightmares, you can kind of glide through that pretty easily. But yeah. Any other kind of tips I may have missed out, lads? Anything else?
Just watch a guide video before you go try to do this for the first time. I know a lot of people would tell you that, but like, really in this case, I would highly recommend, unless you are adamant about going in blind, to go watch a guide video at minimum for like the third and fourth and fifth encounters. So that way, when you get in there and somebody's explaining what's happening to you, it's like already relatively familiar. It'll cut down on your time a lot. I think that was a huge thing that helped my fastest Sherpa run that I've done, is that the person that we were guiding through had already watched a guide video and kind of had an idea about what was going on. So we would just recap it and then have them ask questions when we get there instead of doing the whole explanation. And that was really solid. So it's my biggest recommendation, best thing that you can do if you're somebody that is trying to learn this raid. Just do your Sherpa a favor and go watch a little guide video before. because that'll make a huge difference.
And I think it's very important to get people involved with the mechanics, especially in Encounter 1, because Encounter 1 is the one that sets everything up for the rest of, or at least the next 3 encounters, and partially Encounter 5, where you're doing the whole relay between one plate and another and picking up shapes. Encounter 4 and 5 don't quite have that, but the Witness fight has kind of like a semblance to like kind of shape building when you get to the kind of the testing of the Witness, but getting people involved with the first encounter just to make them aware of how a plate links to another and bouncing back and what the shapes are doing is big. It's a very important part of more than half of this raid. We all complain with Root of Nightmares where, you know, you just have people doing ad clear all the time. This is not the raid to be doing that. It's definitely something that everyone should learn how to do, bouncing back and forth with each plate and then picking up the resonance shapes. And then for the boss fight with Witness, I've done the what you'd call is the runner for getting the right shape, and then the testing itself. Get people involved with that if you have time, though. All right, so we have some recommended builds, quite short and sweet here. So I'll pass it over to our Warlock to talk about a particular build.
Yes, we are finally done with Well of Radiance, Warlocks. It is time to celebrate. We are moving on to the next best thing, which is it's Song of Flame. We're still using a Solar Super, but it's not well, so we're going to take that. We're going to take that. Nice thing about Song of Flame, you can rock it on either Prismatic or Solar subclass, and I do think you can use either one, truly. But that super is going to carry you through all 5 encounters. It's going to be great in the damage phases for both the Herald of Finality and the Witness. Probably don't even need to use it really during the damage phase of the Witness. You could use it during that encounter elsewhere if you wanted to. But you have a lot of different options for your armor to pair with Song of Flame. And I've tried to narrow it down to stuff that is going to work for the most part on Prismatic and Solar. I do have one option that will be tied to the Solar subclass specifically. But Speaker Sight, of course, has been our new hotness. Of course, the buff to the Healing Grenade to turn it into a turret is insanely useful. That's what we were running during our contest run. It was very, very powerful. It is so helpful for really that second encounter in particular. You can throw it out there in the middle whenever folks are going down there to shoot at Tannix's head to kind of get ready for the damage phase, but then also during the damage phase when we're all hacking away at the Herald. It's going to be very helpful, of course, when you're moving through the different sections of that third encounter. What is the name of the third encounter? I never remember it.
Substratum.
Wow. All right. Substratum.
I believe.
Okay. That's a cool sounding name. Very helpful for that, of course. Again, probably, yeah, I would say, yeah, if you know how to throw it well, which hopefully if you're a Warlock main, you'd know how to throw a grenade well at this point in your playtime. But yeah, going to be very helpful there. The one option that I do have for an exotic armor piece that would require the Solar subclass would be Rain of Fire. This would be for a damage option, specifically for the Witness, because you're not really going to be using weapons that need to be reloaded a whole lot if you're using a sword on Herald of Finality. But for the Witness, if you do want to squeeze out just as much juice as possible during your damage phase, getting that air dodge, which is tied to the Solar subclass, and Icarus Dash, you will need to be on the Solar subclass, but getting that benefit from the Rain of Fire boots will tie you to that subclass. I think that'll be kind of the best max DPS build that you can spec into without getting into your weapon options, which we'll cover in just a bit here. But yeah, I mean, there's really no need to run anything else. Again, on the Prismatic side, of course, if you wanted to run a Getaway Artists for the non-boss encounters 1, 3, and 4, 3 and 4 specifically, you totally could do that. I'm not going to say that's a bad option here, but really when it comes to our supers, like there's no reason for you not to be running the best super in the game right now, and it's Song of Flame. So just go crazy, set everything on fire. Oh, I forgot to mention Don Chorus. I skipped right over it. I apologize. This one, again, will be very nice if you're on solar. Probably not as much as Prismatic, but you can definitely set things on fire, continue to burn them terribly, and that would be fantastic for a general ad clear option if you want to lean more into damage, and then Rain of Fire for your DPS. So Speaker Sight being the kind of utility option, Dawn Course being our general ad clear. Again, I would also swap in Getaway Artists on Prismatic if you wanted to play with that as well. And then a Rain of Fire on the Solar subclass with Song of Flame Super for damage in the Witness fight. Those are my recommendations there. I'll swing you all the way back to Titan. Saint, what do you recommend for our Titan listeners?
Well, okay, real quick correction to myself. Substrative is encounter 1, repository is encounter 3. I mixed those two up. So it is an encounter name. I had just gotten mixed up a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. Still a real encounter though. And yeah, hell of a name. For Titans, there are a few recommendations that I would make. I think that there is really like one good DPS loadout that is going to be really common and another one that's harder to come by. So I'll go to those real quick. Basically, hazardous propulsion is going to be your DPS loadout for the Witness. Probably you can get a really good rotation there using something like Crux Termination and Cloud Strike to get like a good damage rotation going there. As in addition to your rockets and super, that can work out pretty well. Generally in the raid though, I'm probably going with one of my either, hard and most light exotic class items, or if you don't have that, Pyrogale, like Court was talking about running this Titan. It's ridiculously good. It is good for so many of the, basically the first 4 encounters. Pyrogale is going to be pretty solid bet, and you can kind of just stay on the same build, through that whole thing. Twilight Arsenal, obviously very good for the Herald and the Witness, and that's where the other kind of DPS focused loadout that I'll mention is a class item with Star Eater on it, and then also Eternal Warrior optionally if you are able to get that. I know that's like a really niche thing, but the reason that it is so good is because you can go into a damage phase with your everything lined up. You throw a grenade or you sever the boss or something like that, and you're getting that bonus light damage against targets affected by darkness. So your axe is going to be dealing a lot of damage there, and your Star Eater is pumping that up even further. And then you can use Eternal Warrior, which is buffing damage that matches your super to a tier 4 25% surge for 30 seconds after your super ends. So you get that super off, and then you could go into using a void weapon of your choice, which we'll talk more about in just a second. So it's a really niche one, but definitely worth considering. And then other than that, it's like, it's pretty much Pyrogale Consecrations on Prismatic or Solar, and then Hazardous Propulsion is just ridiculously good all over the place. Court, what do you recommend for the Hunters?
As per usual, Tether, Void, or Prismatic, because Tether, Deadfall Tether is part of Prismatic for Void. Always great help if required, but I've seen a lot of success and fun with Gifted Conviction with or without Ascension, or I should say Ascension with or without Gifted Conviction on Arc or Prismatic Hunter for on-demand zoomies. Very important for Encounter 3 or Encounter 1 as well, just so you can get between each room, each stage as quickly as possible. And then over on the damage side, as we've all been talking about the last couple of weeks, there's been a lot of conversation about Celestial Nighthawk and still hunt for Solar or Prismatic Hunter, and it's still packing a punch. It's not been completely dumpstered. It is still a really good choice for Solar Hunters or Prismatic Hunters. Prismatic Hunter specifically because you have access to a pretty decent Transcendent grenades, and then you've got options between multi-elemental grenades and melees, so a lot of options in terms of Prismatic Hunter with Celestial Nighthawk and Still Hunt. But I've whenever I haven't been required to do sort of any sort of DPS, it's been Ascension with Gifted Conviction. It's just such a great solid perk, some great damage, survivability, and just jolt. Lovely to see all the time. Over on our recommended weapons here, we've got a list here, so we'll just quickly rattle through them. So primaries for exotics, we've got Outbreak Perfected, Graviton Lance, and Sunshot, of course. All three are doing really great damage just now. I was using Graviton Lance in our run last night for the last encounter, and it's just very easy to get rid of all those trash ads, get rid of the attendants that can really annoy you with their strand and stasis attacks. Legendaries, we've got the heavy burst pulses. I've been using a fair amount as well if I haven't been using Outbreak or Graviton Lance. Over on the special side, of course, still hunts. We've got Ergo Sum, which we'll talk about the rolls on the future episodes. But in essence, you want to look for Wolfpack rounds, Unplanned Reprieve, and the Perfect Fifth, which are top tier with Vortex, Lightweight, or Caster frames. And of course, we've got Buried Bloodline from last season. Still very potent special sidearm. Legendary side, we've got Fusion Rifles just for bursting down those champions. Got the Knights as well, those kind of higher tier rank and file. Rocket sidearms are obviously making a big blast at the moment. You've got multiple elements, you've got multiple roles. We've talked about them in the last couple of episodes. And of course, we've got Supremacy with either Vorpal weapon or Kinetic Tremors. That's my kind of preferred go-to for top slot sniper. Imtus, what heavies are we going to be focusing on?
So we do have a few exotic options here that are kind of interesting. Macrocosm, I think, has been the fan favorite for the Witness. That's certainly what a lot of people like to use in Excision. That can be useful here. If you want to be a bit of a silly Billy, you can go for Tractor Cannon, which you can use on the Witness on their hands. It is a little tricky to apply, but you do get to take advantage of a pretty big buff to your damage if you can pull it off. Gallahorn, I don't think this needs any description why we should be running Gallahorn. It's still one of the top tier ones. Leviathan's Breath is actually a solid option for the Witness. You do want to have a ton of spatial awareness when you're doing damage with the hand attack that comes in through that center plate. And using Leviathan's Breath does, weirdly enough, just because of how it's designed as a bow, does give you a pretty good amount of spatial awareness when the hand attacks are coming in. There's really no... you don't have a giant rocket or a giant trace rifle taking up a quarter of your screen when you're using Leviathan's Breath. So just something to be aware of there. On the legendary side, swords are going to be very powerful for the Herald of Finality. Bequest kind of stands at the top there in terms of that very, very high impact stat. You could do the other half, which Whirlwind and Relentless, Falling Guillotine with Frenzy or Vorpal, and Frenzy and Vorpal, or Whirlwind Blade plus Bait and Switch. For the large amount of Tormentors and Subjugators in some of the other encounters, you will want a precision weapon to kind of burst them down, get them killed quickly. You could use an LFR for that situation. You could also use machine guns like Promemoria, Commemoration, Hammerhead. I know those are aplenty, so probably a bit more people have those on hand than a really top tier LFR. And of course, rockets. Crux Termination is going to be one of the harder ones to grab, but it's still a very, very solid option. Hothead, oldie, but a classic. And then Apex Predator, the real Apex, of course, is going to be one of the best options here. And I guess I haven't actually seen the numbers here. I don't know how rockets compare to the Witness. Have you guys used rockets on the Witness? I personally haven't, so I don't know how how the damage shakes out.
Yeah, I definitely I've definitely used Crux and Hothead with the Cloud Strike as part of like that damage rotation that I was
for the Titan
about.
setup. Yep.
Yeah, and so it works. It's also you have such a the Witness is such a large area to hit. It's pretty hard. Like you can jump up in the air, and even in a moment where you're having to jump to dodge his hand attacks, you can still shoot a rocket off and hit him in the chest, like no problem. So, or it, I guess, is probably more apt descriptor. Yeah. So yeah, I would say it's pretty easy to use rockets. Obviously, Still Hunt kind of reigns supreme. Now it's like there's at least some competition there, and there's the other stuff is viable comparatively, not like you're being blown out of the water by it as much as you were.
When I've been doing Still Hunt, it is with either reconstruction or loading holster rocket. So it's not like Still Hunt's obviously the weapon that's doing the most damage here, but it's backed up by a rocket, so I can't give you like a clear cut like damage kind of comparison when kind of talking about Apex or Crux. But as far as I'm aware, they're performing quite well. And as we've listed kind of exotics like Macrocosm and Levies, they're doing really solid for damage. Like, you get to the Witness battle, it's not, you're a comfortable 2-phase. If not, it's a very, very comfortable 3-phase with the options that we have.
Yeah, and I think people get too caught up on the idea of I have to do optimal damage. It's like, well, okay, really, just, main focus should be staying alive and then doing optimal damage, which is why some of this stuff like Microcosm is like so easy to use, because if you just throw out a super and they just start beaming him, guaranteed to like do pretty solid damage, and it's really easy to just beam him from the hip and stay alive the entire time.
That final boss fight is really the big key here is survivability, and you probably heard Dat will talk about it, where when you're dead, you're not doing any DPS. So like, it is survivability comes very, very like chain and link with your DPS, and so if you're down because of the hand movements, you didn't see it, you didn't have great spatial awareness, then swapping to something else like Levies, where you can hit fire and still have or I should say draw while you're hit firing with Levies, you've got enough kind of spatial awareness to see what's going on, and you can be the person who's calling out where the hand movements are coming from and what the setup is. So yeah, it's you do not need to go hardcore with DPS with the Witness. It is very much focused on survivability first and then damage second.
All right, well, with those tips and tricks out of the way, I think it's time to actually pivot into the Salvation's Edge weapon set here. These are really solid. We're going to be doing a full breakdown, of course, because there's a lot to talk about for these six. Is it 6? Yeah, it's these 6 weapons. So we're going to be talking about Imminence, Strand Lightweight SMG, Critical Anomaly, the Stasis Aggressive Frame Sniper, Non-Denouement, which is the Arc Precision Bow, Nullify, Solar Heavy Burst Pulse Rifle, Forthcoming Deviance, the Void Rapid Fire Glaive, and Summum Bonum, yes, that is how you pronounce it, the Arc Waveframe Sword.
There's just something about them, man.
Okay.
I took 7 years of Latin just to have that thrown in my face. That is awesome. Shout out to the narrative team at Bungie, really making me feel foolish for my life choices. All right, the origin trait that you can find on these weapons is called Collective Purpose. Grants a stack of Collective Purpose per ally nearby, up to 5 stacks. And what a stack grants is the following: range, handling, and then for the bow, a draw time multiplier, and for the sword, a charge rate reduction as well. We're still working out the exact numerical values for that, but basically your gun is going to feel and hit a little bit harder and further per ally. Now, I did take Nullify into Excision. I don't know if it counts the NPC allies. I was trying to stand next to Keitel and Mithrax to see if I could get free stacks of Collective Purpose. I do know that the King's Fall origin trait absolutely counts them, because you can overflow those weapons by a crazy amount for the King's Fall origin trait. So I'm a little bummed that we didn't follow in that path, but I always did prefer Oryx more than the Witness. So we also have a new raid perk showing up in column 4. This is a damage-based perk here, Chaos Reshaped. It is functioning a little bit similar to Frenzy. So after having maintained a state of either dealing or receiving damage every 5 seconds for at least 12 seconds, and then if we enhance this raid perk, that bumps it down to 11.5 seconds. At 1 stack of Chaos Reshaped, you gain 20% damage buff for 7 seconds. And then if we maintain Chaos Reshaped ×1 for an additional 12 seconds, and again, if this is an enhanced Chaos Reshaped perk, that is bumped down to 11 seconds. At ×2 Chaos Reshaped, we get 35% damage for 7 seconds. And on top of that, it periodically releases a healing burst while active. That burst builds up at a rate of about 5 HP per second, restoring 35 HP after 7 seconds. And that's for the ×2 stack specifically for the healing burst. Dealing or receiving damage does refresh the buff duration. It can be activated while stowed, and it does persist through a stow as well. So it seems like a lot of the work is just getting to the first and second stacks, but then once you have them, you've got a very generous window for refreshing the buff duration, but then you also have it for a good amount of time. And if you need to swap weapons to pull out something else, like for a bait and switch setup, you will still come back to that weapon and have enough time to take advantage of either 20% damage buff or 35% damage buff, which is nothing to sneeze at, right? I mean, those are hefty damage amounts. Granted, we have a very interesting set of weapons to take advantage of that, right? We don't have kind of our traditional damage weapons like a machine gun, a grenade launcher, a heavy grenade launcher, a rocket launcher. So very interesting that we have, a perk that requires a very long amount of setup, but I think there are some ways to kind of work this into a few of these weapons. So let's get into Imminence. Saint, do you want to start us off here with our first primary?
Yeah, I'll start us off here. This is our Strand Lightweight SMG. As a reminder, this is going to give you plus 20 mobility and that 6.25% forward movement speed. We're going to compare this thing with, some popular options, some popular lightweight SMG options like the Recluse, coming from Onslaught, which we were just talking about earlier. You can focus again, as well as the Multimach CCX from Iron Banner, another one that has been seeing a lot of play recently, including for myself. So let's start off with those stats. We get at the range. It's going to have a base range of 31, which translates to about 17.25 meters ADS. Recluse caps out at 40, which is a little over 18 meters. So, not great, but okay. And stability is going to be 43, which is in the middle. Handling is 69, which is basically Multimach, which is 70, and that translates to a 0.31 ready and 0.23 ADS speed. So pretty quick there. And the reload is 26, which is going to have that all the way up at 2.17 seconds, which is a bit long for a weapon that you're going to be dumping the magazine on pretty frequently. And then finally, it's going to have a base recoil direction stat of 93, which sounds pretty high, but I am here to tell you that even at 100 recoil direction, it is not very easily controllable on the controller, especially, M&K may be slightly easier, but this thing just has a bit of a wild recoil pattern and stability. Out of all the stats that I just mentioned, having a little over 17 meters of range is honestly fine with me, but that reload speed at 2.17 seconds base and the stability is just pretty low at 43, despite being in the middle of this category. Because the recoil direction, recoil pattern is so bad, we're going to want to crank that up a pretty good amount. So with that said, what barrels and mags am I looking to take here? On a barrel side, I'm probably going to go small bore or maybe even polygonal rifling, because I want that +7 or +10 to my stability. And you could get your, if you have small bore on, you're pushing yourself up towards closer to 18 meters of base range, which is nice. But again, if I can't hit my shots, who cares if I can land full damage at 19 meters if I can't actually shoot anything with any kind of accuracy? So a bit of a balance there. Next up, you have steady rounds with +15 stability, but that's taking 5 range away, which I'm not super keen on. So I'm probably going to go with flared magwell here. Alloy mag is also an option, but I like flared because even though it's 15 points to my reload stat, not 15% off of, the scaler and the timing there, it also gives +5 stability, which just pumped me up a little bit there. Maybe, mouse and keyboard, alloy mag, maybe an option there. And then getting into our main trait columns here. In column 3, we've got perpetual motion, pugilist, demo, Enlighten Action, and Slice. So classic, strand trait showing up here again. And then in column 4, we get Firefly, very uncommon for SMGs. Desperate Measures, Chaos Reshaped, that new raid trait appearing on all these weapons, and Hatchling. I believe that this is the first time we've ever seen Firefly show up on an SMG. Lads, correct me if I'm wrong there, but are you interested in Firefly on this SMG? Court, am I off on that? And are you interested in it? What's the vibe on Firefly on an SMG?
I'm not too sure. I mean, SMG, we've talked about this ad nauseum for the last couple of episodes, but SMGs are not in a great spot at the moment. Maybe they'll see kind of uprising in the future, but they have had their time in the sun for quite a while. But yeah, Firefly on an SMG, obviously you get that target explosion, you get 50 reload for 5 seconds, and it also inherits the combatant damage scaling as well. But I would probably recommend Firefly for a weapon we'll talk about later on in terms of the pulse rifle. I just think SMGs don't, at least the way I'm playing them, I'm not necessarily going for the precision hit. I obviously want to get the precision hit because you're doing more damage anyway, but and then obviously when you get the target explosion, you perform a lot of damage. But yeah, I'm not too sure about Firefly on an SMG. Is this is their first SMG with Firefly?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I just double checked, and it's also like one of very few weapons that's not kinetic or solar to roll with Firefly, because the only other one is Doom of Chelchis. That scout rifle is the only other primary weapon that's not kinetic or solar that rolls with Firefly.
Yeah, I'm just looking at our outgoing damage scaling spreadsheet from Mossy Max. Fantastic document. You can find that over on the D2 spreadsheets. And SMGs for elites and minors, they're kind of, I was going to say middling, but they're actually joint with auto rifle kind of at the bottom in terms of damage scaling. So yeah, I would probably not go for Firefly just with you're not going to get as much damage compared to, say, a pulse rifle, which we'll talk about later. Yeah.
It's tough because, on the one hand, Firefly does grant you 50 reload speed for 6 seconds, and that is a weakness of Imminence. So with that active, that 50 reload, we're at 76, just at base, not taking into account whatever mag you have or a column 3 perk. That at 76 takes our reload down to 1.5 seconds reload time. Very manageable. I don't think that's out of band at all for SMG stuff. And again, that's just your column 4 damage perk, also providing reload, not taking into account any column 3 stuff that might be helping you. But you do need to land a headshot. You need, well, a precision kill, I should be honest here, which can be tough. I've shot Imminence on M&K. I don't have a hard time landing precision shots, but in the heat of battle, when I'm going up against enemies that can flinch me a lot harder than, I think I was just playing around in like a seasonal activity, shooting some miners that weren't really shooting back at me, it might be a little bit harder to consistently land that. And in which case, you better hope that you have a column 3 perk that's providing some reload when Firefly isn't active. So yeah, that's going to be tough. I think just by itself, I'm not quite sold on Firefly in column 4. Had it been in column 3 and I could pair it with something in column 4, maybe just for the fun's sake, But yeah, there's some other stuff in column 4 I'd rather go for.
Yeah, I'm looking at this thinking, okay, if I'm gonna go for Firefly, I'm gonna need like dynamic sway reduction in column 3, which is not a trait to typically be run in PvE. And that's just like a line of investment, but if it was going to allow me to hit the crits more often, I'm keen on that. It is for sure unique, no doubt, like we talked about. And to Court's point, it's just not going to do quite as much for you as some other weapons with this trait on it can, despite it's counteracting that weakness. So yeah, if you're investing in, dynamic sway reduction Firefly, you better get that precision kill, because if not, your reload's going to kind of be trash. But there's some other stuff on here that I'm very keen on. Going back to that original role, I think that I'm probably going to go for something like Perpetual Motion and Chaos Reshaped. It's kind of like giving a lot of negations to stats there. If I'm putting on maybe a reload speed masterwork and I get Perpetual Motion stacked up, you're at 71 reload, which is putting you about 1.6 seconds. So it's okay. It's not quite the best there, but that's also getting me all the way up to like 77 stability and 40 range if I have small bore select there, which is really nice. And I'm just really interested in using Chaos Reshaped on this thing, kind of having it in my back pocket for the little bit of healing, bumps that it gives you, which is pretty nice. I don't know. What are the roles you looking for on this guy?
For me in column 4, it's got to be Desperate Measures. I'm just so in love with that perk. With Prismatic, I think it's perfect. It just feels great. That's my damage perk of pick. I think column 3, I might do Demolitionist Desperate Measures or like a Pugilist Desperate Measures. Again, if I am committing to kind of using this on Prismatic, when I go Transcendent, I get my abilities back a lot quicker. That can really help with like Demo and Pugilist refreshing stuff whenever I use one of those corresponding melees. So that's where I'm landing. I think honestly the hardest column for me right now is what I'm going to do in columns 1 and 2 as to which stats need the most addressing. I was initially thinking Fluted, but the handling's already quite high, and so I was starting to lean maybe more small bore. And then I also started thinking, okay, what about, if I need to work on the recoil direction, do I need to start looking at Arrowhead? But then that's too much handling, so should I go something like Extended Barrel? I don't know. Kind of tossing that up. And then in column 2, I think even though my perennial favorite tactical mag is here, I do kind of think I want Alloy Mag instead, actually, for a more consistent reloading experience, because one thing's for sure, when I use an SMG, I go all the way through that magazine. I'm very rarely reloading halfway or a third of the way through the magazine. I get to the bottom and then I reload. So I will take that multiplier, that reload multiplier, and just looking at that by itself with no other perks helping the reload, that takes you down to 1.85. It's not crazy fast, but again, that's your column 2 perk helping out with your reload speed here. So we can lean into it if that's still too slow, I could do Enlightened Action. I'm also, I'm on paper looking at this for Demolitionist, so that's just an automatic reload still, but Enlightened Action could start helping out and take that even lower with some stacks of that when I get to the end of the magazine. I don't know, but I think Alloy is probably the play here. Just, dump a full mag, reload, hope I get some column 3 bonus energy for my abilities. If I have a grenade up, I can throw that reload right away. Otherwise, I'll take Alloy Mag and help me out there, and then keep working on that ability loop for Desperate Measures. How about you, Court?
Yeah, column 4. I'm looking at Chaos Reshape. I'm a little bit more friendly to Chaos Reshape for other weapons, maybe not for Imminence, just because this is ultimately going to be your primary kind of bullet hose weapon. So when you've got a trait that's not active for, up to 30 seconds, perhaps longer if you're not getting that right engagement, you effectively have nothing in column 4 for a good time. Whereas, Chaos Reshaped maybe makes more sense for a weapon that you're going to swap out a different weapon into a Chaos Reshaped weapon, because it's working in the background, just like Frenzy, so you don't need to worry about it. So, yeah, I think Desperate Measures for me. I'm looking at Slice and just thinking, how could we maybe perform with Slice? So again, this is more curated towards hunters, just with class ability usage being a lot faster for hunters. So just a reminder, so the next 5 hits within 8 or 9 seconds with Enhanced Slice apply Sever. So those 5 hits, if you can really time it right, you could get 5 targets. And it also says here in the compendium, scoring a hit on a non-severed enemy refreshes the buff duration. So and yeah, the buff can be activated while stowed and persists through stow. So you could use Slice as kind of like, again, another bullet hose scenario where you're just applying Sever across multiple targets. Maybe more kind of fond of Slice on a weapon that's not doing as much damage because you're not going to accidentally kill them. And with an SMG, you've got plenty of bullets to apply Slice. And remember that Slice has that 40% enemy outgoing damage is decreased by 40% for 10 seconds, or 15 when you've got the fragment to extend that timer. So we've been really friendly with Sever as a subclass perk on the podcast. So I'm just thinking that's maybe where this could do quite well with Slice. Outside of that, I think just another kind of perpetual motion, enlightened action. I mean, you do have a combo of like demolitionist plus strategist. Maybe thinking like Saint for your rocket damage with hazardous propulsion. Get that strategist backup for thruster or your barricades, and then demo just for like additional grenade energy. But I'm certainly not trying to dog on this SMG. I think just SMGs they're not the hot thing at the moment, so I'm not ultimately sure what I'd go for, but it'd probably be something like Slice and Desperate Measures.
Speaking of Slice, last thing I'll say here is that I've been using Faceted Solitude on Strand a lot. The rapid precision hits emits a severing blast from the target, and it's increased if you're transcendent, which is just if I'm not using Slice on something, I find myself using that a lot these days in higher end content where I'm dealing with a lot of enemies, or a significant amount of enemies that would benefit from being severed, as it were. So I'm quite favorable on that and its ability to work with other weapons. But if I'm not using that, I still use Slice quite a bit in that harder activity, to Court's point.
Sweet. Okay. I'll take the next one here. I've spent quite a lot of time with kind of the science side for Critical Anomaly. Critical Anomaly is our stasis aggressive sniper rifle. There's no bonus to the aggressive frames for snipers specifically, and we're going to compare this with Succession, which you can get from Deepstone Crypt or, Into the Light, but it'll be the Brave Arsenal attached to that, and that is our kinetic option, and we'll also be pairing it with Volta Bracket, which is from Neomuna, which is our strand option. So it's going to be Critical versus Succession versus Volta here. So range of 71 versus 76 versus 72. Stability of 28 versus 23 versus 23. Handling of 30 versus 30 versus 24. And that corresponds to a 0.43 second ready speed, a 0.44 second ADS speed, and a 0.38 second stow speed. Reload is 36 versus 35 versus 28. Quick reminder here that the damage bonus that kinetics have, that was 15% for specials, that they have, or they had for versus bosses, where was removed at the start of the final shape. So that means Critical Anomaly does the same base damage to a boss target as, say, Succession or Supremacy. To Succession. I shouldn't compare it with Supremacy because that's a rapid fire. It's got a different damage profile, but they do the same base damage compared to their strand and or elemental counterparts. This damage bonus is still active versus other non-boss targets. So mini-boss champions, you'll still get the kinetic damage bonus from those kinetics, not Critical Anomaly, with this being a stasis weapon. Spend a little time here about Critical Anomalies magazine. It's quite low, as are all aggressive snipers. So at base, it is 3. With backup mag, it goes up to 4. With Adept backup mag, if you can get the Adept version, it's 4. With TAC mag, it's 4. Backup mag is 4. With Adept backup mag, it goes up to 5. With Extended mag, it remains at 4, but when you pair either Adept or the normal version of backup mag, it goes up to 5. So if you've been wondering where people have manage to get 5 as a sort of the quote base magazine, it's either with tac mag plus adept backup mag, or is it extended mag plus backup mag, or the adept version. Critical anomalies reserves are at base 20, and then with 1 reserve it's 22, 2 it's 23, and then 3 it's 24. And yeah, so statistically has an edge over the other aggressives, though its perk selection is the main draw for the sniper for a number of reasons. In terms of column 1 and 2, really, so I'll skip ahead here and just talk about depending on the perks that you're going after, you don't necessarily need to spec into kind of magazine perks just with the type of perks that we have in column 3. But if you're going for like a handling build, then I would just automatically go for like something like fluted barrel. Mouse and keyboard, I've not noticed anything like in terms of how hard it is to land shots. I don't know if you fired this on console, Saint, if you've got a different kind of direction for column 1.
No, it's the RPM is so low that if I mean, you just need to pace your shots like just a little bit and you'll be able to land consistent crits, no problem.
So handling it is. Column 2, as I've been talking about, it's really up to you where you want to go with this. We don't have a lot of options. It doesn't have the full selection of the sort of the second tier. You've only got accurized rounds. You don't need extra range. You've got tac mag, as I've talked about earlier. You've got extended mag as well. You've got steady rounds, and you've got alloy magazines. So it's a toss-up where you want to go because of columns 3 and 4. So, yeah, we have quite a selection, and it's depending on where you want to go. I'm going for the utility role here with chill clip, but we do have rewind rounds. We've got reconstruction. Now, obviously, reconstruction will overflow your magazine up to double, but again, it's based on your base magazine plus whatever weapon mod that you may have on top of that. So that's a depth backup mag or mag. So if you've got a depth backup mag with tac mag, it goes up to 10 with reconstruction. And if you've got extended mag plus backup mag, that also goes up to 10. Otherwise, it's going to be either 6 when you don't have any additional mods attached, or 8. Again, that's all with reconstruction. But I'm pivoting towards chill clip with the fact that it applies 50 stacks of slow, so that's 2 shots to freeze, and it is active twice in a 4 bullet mag, or 3 times in a 5 bullet mag, I should say, because it acts when you hit that halfway point, it rounds up, so you're getting 3 shots of chill clip instead of 2. For column 4, again, as another toss-up with the direction you want to go, I have pivoted towards Chaos Reshaped because of the points that I made with Imminence, where it's going to be working in the background. I'm going to have some of the benefits, at least the first stack of Chaos Reshaped, while I swap to it, and I'll get that additional, what is it here? It's 20% damage. Hopefully get that times 2 and plus the healing, but you could go for something like bait and switch. I'm not too sure about headstone, at least not on a sniper. I mean, I'm going to be aiming for the head, and this is your kind of double stasis synergy with headstone spawning the crystal, and most of the time you're going to be using this against kind of heavier targets, so you're going to spawn a large crystal anyway. But I'm still focused towards Chaos Reshaped. If you're using this as a damage sniper rifle, then obviously it would be something like reconstruction with bait and switch, or fire and line if you just want to use that with your teammates. I've been going back and forth with like, what do I want? I can obviously craft both versions, but I want to use this as a utility, as a kind of jack of all trades versus champions. Because obviously with slow, you can deal with overloads, with freeze into shatter, which you'll get after 2 shots. You can deal with unstoppables, and obviously Bungie fixed the interaction with Radiant, so you can, while using chill clips, so you can use this against barrier champions. So that's my thoughts. I think Imminence, I think we had this discussion a few days ago. I was kind of talking back and forth about Critical Anomaly. What's your thoughts? What are you going to aim for?
I'm not sold on Chill Clip. I would rather do Reconstruction and Chaos Reshaped, or, well, yeah, not bait and switch, because this gun's handling is so low that swap speed becomes relevant for bait and switch to maximize my time. So I would rather have bait and switch on something like a rapid fire, where I can swap through the naturally higher handling a lot faster. So I'd rather have Reconstruction building in the background at the same time that Chaos Reshaped is building in the background, or that I have the gun out and I'm using it for whatever reason. Again, I think Chill Clips on just a small magazine weapon does not make a lot of sense to me. I know that the benefits are there, and I know that we can craft this and enhance the magazine size up to 5. I would prefer to have something like Reconstruction Chill Clip as opposed to Chill Clip or Reconstruction on an aggressive frame sniper rifle. That's my preference. I know that there's triple tap in Calm 4. You could do a Chill Clip triple tap to kind of extend out the number of shots you have one other time, again, if you've got 5 in the mag. But yeah, it's just a lot for Chill Clip. I think also the problem that I have, again, Chill Clip is really great against Overload champions. Overload champions love to teleport, and if I'm trying to hit them with a sniper rifle mid-teleport on a small magazine, I'm going to get very frustrated very quickly. I would just rather have a ton of bullets that I can fire at something that I'm not really using for anything other than damage, as opposed to also trying to stun them, is my line of thought.
I'm gonna take the opposite position. I'm gonna go ultra favorable on Chill Clip, because I have Secession with Reconstruction and Recombination is like my typical go-to damage one for like using in this scenario. And I've been using this in GMs like a lot, which is one of the reasons I was on the same side initially of it doesn't really seem like it's worth it. Like, why would I want to use Chill Clip on a sniper where it could be harder to shoot the teleporting, overload champs, and they seem really annoying. It's not so bad, or it's not as bad as I thought it would be, and it is capable of countering all 3 champ types at the moment. Anti-barrier sniper, Chill Clip. I have a 5 rounds in a mag on the roll that I have. I got lucky on that, so I'm getting 3 shots out of that of Chill Clip, and it's a lot of reloading after you shoot, which is a little tedious, going, kind of with your argument of, Reconstruction Chill Clip is like just a way better autoloading, holster Chill Clip are just like way more synergistic. But once I got myself into that flow of shooting 2 or 3 shots and then reloading and stowing the weapon, I'm okay with that. And I also, one of the things that got me using this more was I got really lucky when we did master challenges, and I got Chill Clip Chaos Reshaped, as well as several other good traits on this weapon. So then it just
okay, Saint.
Well, go ahead, Court.
No, I'm just saying, okay, Saint, you don't need to rub it.
Yeah,
I've got plenty of debt rolls, and it never rolled with Chill Clip.
Yeah, we saw the roll that you shared, dude. So happy for you. You got tack or extended mag. Yeah, that's great, Saint. So happy for you.
Yeah. I don't mind shooting the teleporting guys so much. You have to be patient, right? You have to wait for them to teleport and then go for the shot. So there's a little bit of like the mini game there and like trying to be patient with it. But yeah, the triple champion counter potential here is nuts. Even if it does take like a little bit getting used to, I would say. And that's my vibe on it.
The big malice here is that reload, which is why you'd want to just automatically go for reload speed with your masterwork. But I certainly will put my hand up. Like especially if you're going extended mag, that's the only way outside of adept backup mag with your adept version to get 5. So if you don't have a Chill Clip roll for the adept version, then this is your only way to get 5 is through extended mag, and that dumpsters your reloads down to 16. But then if you go for where is it? Reload speed, that does bring it up by another 10, and then you get the extra, like, what is it, 2 plus 2 when you get up to level 20. I will acknowledge that the reload stat is what's probably it might kind of flip me back. I've used it a fair amount, and I can try and circumvent the slow reload with various modifiers that the Hunter kit can get. But I completely understand that people might be put off by the slow reload, and that's why I'm like focusing on like handling, because handling is the other kind of major low stat here. And if you want to use this as a kind of swap to, then yeah, you will need to focus on that as well. But so far at the moment, I'm quite happy with my chill clip roll.
Does explosive payload affect chill clip in any beneficial way? Does it split up the 50 slow stacks from that single shot into 2 of 25? Or is it the first part of explosive does the 50 and the follow-up part of explosive does nothing but extra damage?
I haven't tested that specific interaction, but I feel like I had this conversation with someone and they said no, because there's like a kind of miniature cooldown between the explosive payload effect. It's not like with overload where you need like, what is it, 3 shots for overload to like hand cannon explosive payload. You need 3 shots, but explosive payload counts as 2. It's not the same here. Chill clip's got like a very like short internal cooldown where it can't be applied twice in short succession, much like the bolts from fusion rifles. Obviously all 7 or X amount of bolts from a fusion rifle doesn't apply chill clip. It's the like effectively either the first shot or the full shot collectively.
Gotcha.
So I would say no.
Yeah. Last thing I'll say about this weapon is I would definitely agree with the idea that this is a much better weapon to run Chaos Reshaped on. Whether you're taking it out to deal some burst damage or counter a champion, whatever it is, being able to have that in your back pocket, like you guys mentioned, I'm totally with you on that. That it just feels a little more natural in most of your like dungeon, raid GM kind of loadouts, right?
Yeah, especially Grandmasters, where you're going to be in the thick of it most of the time, especially with our more kind of modern battlegrounds and strikes. Like, it's going to be active in the background. You might drop it just between encounters, but if you're in an encounter for some time, then it's something that I've went for. I've crafted it with Chaos Reshape with Chill Clip. I just didn't see much point of like headstone. It's just not something. I'd rather put like headstone on a scout rifle compared to a sniper, but I can see the utility if you want to go full stasis. But yeah, thumbs up from me for Critical Anomaly.
Yeah. Great weapon.
Go snipers. All right, let's talk about our energy slot weapons here. So we're going to move down to our first one here is an arc weapon. This is Non-Denouement. This is our arc precision frame bow. We've had a few of these. There is some pretty good competition. We'll be comparing this to the last one that we got, which was Point of the Stag, which is dropping from Iron Banner at this point. And then our more recent precision frame bow, Vengeful Whisper, dropping from Warlord's Ruin, which is Strand. So on our accuracy side here, I'm going to go Non-Denouement, Point of the Stag, and Vengeful Whisper in that order. It is 74 accuracy versus 68 versus 71, so it does come out on top. Stability, it's 48 versus 40 versus 49, so in the middle, or rather behind by 1 for Vengeful Whisper. Handling here, it is 54, and then Point of the Stag and Vengeful both have 56. Non-Denouement specifically is a 0.58 second ready, a 0.43 second ADS, and a 0.44 second stow speed. And then on reload, they all share the exact same value, which is 40, and that translates to a 0.78 second reload speed here. So statistically, it is on the top here. Both this and I would say Vengeful Whisper are, I think, the two best statted out precision frame bows. I haven't looked through all of them going too far back, but definitely that stability stat is unnaturally high for a precision frame bow here. Bows are still in kind of a simplified spot here when we look at our first two traits. Again, we've got bowstrings and then the arrows themselves here. There is not a whole lot of guesswork that needs to go into column 1 here. You want to get that draw time down, and the best thing to do that is elastic string. That is just far and away superior. Really, really big drawstring Malice of 72, which is Malice isn't the right word. It's a penalty, but it's a good penalty. We want the draw time to go down, so that is quite helpful here. Column 3, now you do have some kind of wiggle room here a little bit if the -10 accuracy of Elastic String is a problem for you. And again, this does have a very high accuracy. It's one of the top ones. You can come back around and boost that accuracy to make up for it, to kind of pretend there are no malices, and then go with straight fletching, which is just a +10 to your accuracy. And at that point, you're getting, with Elastic String, the reduction to your draw time. It comes out to no difference to your accuracy stat at 74, but you are getting a +5 to your handling to take that up to 59. That's one way to do it. I think that's a very common recommendation for a lot of people, straight fletching, Elastic String. There are some other options, though, in column 2 for our arrows. We could do compact arrow shaft. If you're okay with a small penalty to accuracy, you could start buffing some of your other stats. So compact does +10 to reload and +10 to handling, which can be very nice. So at that point, we're looking at 69 handling and 50 reload speed, really bumping those two very strong stats for this bow even higher. That's probably the other option here. So there's a smaller one where helical fletching gives you a little bit of a bump to your accuracy, so that malice only becomes a -5, and then also helps out on stability. I don't think stability is going to matter as much in PvE. I know that that is very, very important to keep track of if you're trying to use bows in PvP, but I know that crowd is not getting any bigger anytime soon, so I personally am not speccing into stability at all. I would probably go straight fletching. That's my column 2 pick here, but I could understand some people going compact arrow shaft as well to really help out with that. Columns 3 and 4, there's really just one roll that is just the roll of rolls. I doubt we'll get a legendary bow that surpasses the strength of this. In column 3, I will say you've got Archer's Tempo. I think that's kind of the one that we all look for whenever we get a new bow. You've also got Shoot to Loot, very, very solid on a bow as well. Impulse Amplifier, Dragonfly, Hipfire Grip, like all the stuff that people would kind of say, I wish I could have that on a bow. Those are always fun, unique, or helpful perks. It's here. It's a raid bow. I mean, they didn't pull out any punches. But in column 4, there is really just the one option. And it is Volt Shot. This is our first ever bow with Volt Shot. It is unbelievably strong when paired with Archer's Tempo. Just how quickly you can, again, assuming you're getting that kill with Volt Shot, you can just keep reprocking it over and over and over again. Bows have great range, so you are really looking at applying Volt Shot to just about any engagement distance you go into in Destiny 2. Yes, there are some other excellent perks in column 4, but I mean, it's Volt Shot. Like, why aren't you playing with Volt Shot? What's wrong with you? What happened? Like, what did Volt Shot do to you? You know, explosive payload. Who cares? Every other great bow that we talk about is explosive payload. Desperate Measures. I mean, yes, very, very solid option here. Great perk. I love it to death. But Volt Shot's on column 4. You know, Archer's Gambit again. Just came back, very, very solid. You can pair that with Archer's Tempo for a lot of quick shots in succession. But Volt Shot's in column 4. Why would you use Archer's Gambit? You know, it's just hard. I don't think you can make an argument against Volt Shot. Court Saint, have you tried this with Volt Shot? Have you tried it with other damage perks? Do you think there's something else that could be used instead of Volt Shot for Non-Denouement?
No, I'm still going to go for Volt Shot. Again, with the reasons with what I mentioned about Imminence with Chaos Reshaped, I just don't think that's really worth it. You can try and proc one for all, but Desperate Measures maybe like a distant second. But no, Baby Trinity Ghoul is what I'm going for Non-Denouement.
Yeah, what I first need to start doing is pronouncing this weapon's name correctly. But once I get through that, I think that
Non-Denouement.
Yeah, no, the Non-Denouement here, as those in the South might say. But this is probably the luckiest I got on any of the raid weapons. Just getting some like regular drops. The first one I got was Hipfire Grip and Archer's Gambit, so I immediately started trying that out. And even without any of the other, you know, it didn't have like Elastic String or a Draw Time Masterwork or any of that stuff. It's kind of silly, to be honest with you. It's so ridiculously short. You're 200 and something milliseconds. You're getting down if you really stacked everything up here. You can get a just absolutely ridiculously low draw time speed, right? So if you have if we're on our base elastic string, that's bringing your draw time down to about 612 milliseconds. If you add on any sort of masterwork, that's going to be right around 600, 601. So just for some like quick reference on a math, there 601 is your base draw speed. Well, Archer's Gambit is a 60% decrease. It's a 0.4 scalar, right? You're looking at 240 milliseconds. If you put in a draw time masterwork or something like that, you're just getting even lower. If you had on Archer's Tempo, it's a 25% decrease on draw time. You're like sub 200 milliseconds. I mean, it's just getting ridiculous here. The problem is that you're shooting all these arrows and it's still not doing as much as one volt shot arrow right in the middle of that group of enemies. And it's really fun. It's goofy. But yeah, the Archer's Tempo and volt shot is just it. It is Trinity Gold Jr., like Court said. And Impetus, to your point, there's so many other good bows out there. None of them have got this. It's not even close on what this thing can do in a pretty good setup of enemies. Really fun to use. I'm really interested to see what the draw speed is on Collective Purpose. We still don't know what the exact stats are on that as you get more people around you, but given that that is a origin trait that could potentially be quite strong alongside this bow, really just strong pick all around. Cool weapon, has everything that you could think to put on a bow like this.
I guess in a world where you are just committing all into volt shot, it might make sense to go impulse amplifier for the projectile velocity.
What isn't that is a reload scalar too? Pretty good reload
yes.
scalar, right?
Well, that's just to the rocket launchers.
But does it give? Yeah, okay. So
no, I'm sorry.
reload,
There is
no
one for
scalar.
bows. We just don't know what it is for the bow. Gotcha. I did not read farther enough. Yes, there is a reload multiplier and a small 20 bump to your reload speed. Yes. Yeah, I'm thinking like if you don't really care about doing the precision shots to proc Archer's Tempo, if you're just actually trying to fire arrows into targets, like to body shot them to proc full shot, it would probably make the most sense to go impulse amplifier to have the faster arrow to hit the targets, right? Or am I talking crazy?
I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I don't think that's that crazy. I think that people will also use Dragonfly just because it's fun. Honestly,
That's
even
true.
though it's not optimal, right? It's certainly fun.
Yeah. I have seen a few comments like go towards Dragonfly, and initially I was thinking that as well because bows, Dragonfly also inherits the weapon's combatant damage scaling, which is quite high on bows. Is 3 times, which is actually it's just slightly lower than hand cannons when we're just talking about primaries versus minors and elites. Yeah, so like solid like ad clear, but it might be a little bit too, a little bit redundant when volt shots kind of it's not an explosive effect, but it's that chaining lightning effect. And incidentally, if we still had the original multipliers with volt shot, then this would be a tearaway because that volt shot would have been amplified by what, like 3 times or 2 times versus elite. So it would have been crazy. Like we're talking not even junior Trinity Ghoul, because Trinity Ghoul doesn't get volt shot. It's just like an arc elemental effect. So it would have been like Trinity Ghoul 2.0 if it's got volt shot, but no, it's not quite there. That is not the case. Volt shot does not inherit the damage scalar, but I can see a case for Dragonfly if you want to go completely bonkers. But yeah, Archer's Tempo is my go-to.
Yeah, it's just ridiculously good. Dragonfly Volt Shot is also the role I would use on Nation of Beasts, the Last Wish Reprise.
Yep.
Again, it's just kind of fun and it explodes everything. So whatever you want to pick, just get a Volt Shot roll and put whatever you would like on it because it's gonna work. All right. Speaking of things that are just gonna work, next up on our list of weapons here, we have got Nullify. This is the Solar Heavy Burst Pulse Rifle, the new archetype that has been added to the game this release, this episode. It's going to be a 2-round burst with a small flinch resistance while you are aimed down sights. So we've only got two other competitors here. We've got Aisha's Care, which we were just talking about last episode, and Corasion, which we also talked about recently. So how does this thing stack up versus Aisha's and Corasion, the other two in its archetype of pulse rifle that just has been added? On the range stat, we've got 79 range. That is going to be 1 point under Aisha's and 4 points above Corasion, which are at 80 and 75 respectively. What does that 79 range mean? That is going to be about 22 meters from hipfire and about 37.25 meters ADS. That's a chunk of range right there off the bat. 37.27 meters is pretty solid for a primary weapon. 15 meters is the max range where many surrounded perks activate and stuff like that fail to activate. So just to give you a perspective there, it's pretty solid off the bat. On stability, we've got 36 versus 39 and 32, so just slightly under Aisha's there. And then that's going to continue on handling, which is at 29 versus 33 on Aisha's and Corasion. That's about a 0.45 ready speed, a 0.4 ADS, and a 0.45 stow. So a little slow, but not terrible. Reload speed is the highest at 45 versus 40 and 36. That's about 1.96 seconds on the base reload time there. Okay, compared to some of the other weapons we have, it's not as bad. It's a little bit of a quicker reload, but we'll probably want to tend to that a little bit. And then the recoil direction, they're all very similar here, 73, 75, and 72. The short burst and the pause between the bursts doesn't really impact the recoil very much on M&K, and I would say this same is true on controller. The only time I ever really started thinking about recoil is when I was using a Desperado Aisha's Care roll, and that's because your RPM has just gone way up, right? So all of a sudden you're spamming shots way faster than you normally would be able to. Outside of that, I do not think that the recoil direction is much of a concern, to be honest with you. Even though it says 75, it just by nature it's a pretty stable weapon, which it wouldn't look like on paper, but it definitely feels that way, I would say. You don't really need to spec in a range. It's just got that 37 meters off the bat. Even just a few points is going to put you up another meter, and it's really all these weapons are pretty close on what they're bringing to the table here. The Trials one, unsurprisingly, has got some really nice stats, and it's a little better handling, a little better stability, but it's not much of a loss here at all. When we start looking at, what can we use on barrels and mags to support this weapon? What do we need to pump up some of its stats? I think I'm probably going to go with Fluted Barrel on the barrel side. That is going to give me +5 stability and +15 handling. So, all of a sudden you're at 41 and 44 respectively, kind of evening out the stats there a little bit on the weapon. You can go Arrowhead Break. That is going to pump your recoil direction all the way up to 100 if you find that you do need that in order to hit the crits. But yeah, I'd say Fluted is probably my choice there. And then we move into mags. There's you can't really go wrong with Tac Mag. You're going to get an extra burst, 10 reload, 5 stability, making that even easier to hit. Flared Magwell is going to give 15 reload, but personally, I'm probably taking Tac or Alloy, and those are pretty easy choices. It's not going to remain that way for long, though, as we get into our main columns here. In column 3, you've got Firefly, Demo, Heel Clip, Rapid Hit, Under Over, just ton of options there. It's like this thing was just absolutely built for PvE. Even the other things there, Subsistence and 4 times the Charm. And then again in column 4, Desperate Measures, Vorpal, Adrenaline Junkie, Chaos Reshaped, Incandescent. It is just a bounty of very viable traits. When we think about some other options that, we're looking in the solar kind of pulse rifle space. We do have a lot of Heel Clip Incandescent, things out there. Darkest Before, they just came back with Prophecy. The adaptive from season 23, Adhortative, I believe is how you pronounce that. Another craftable just from this previous season or final season. You had Jurassic Green, and then you've also got the BXR Battler with Demo and Incandescent. This archetype is just a little bit stronger, though. It is significantly stronger than some of those archetypes, and even still, it's just better by another, at least 10% over even some of our strongest Pulse archetypes as far as that base damage goes. So I know what I've got this thing crafted. It's the first raid weapon that I had crafted, and I got another adept roll. I'm gonna hold that for just 1 second, though. Impetus. Out of all the traits in this thing, what are you the most keen on? What are you crafting here?
Well, I had said with Imminence, it would be really nice if Firefly showed up in column 3, because then I could probably use it with some of the other outstanding damage perks in column 4. And lo and behold, here on Nullify, Firefly's in column 3. And I can hit headshots pretty easily with my heavy burst pulse rifle. So that is what I'm going for. It's a damage perk that I can then pair with another damage perk in column 4. But when I hit that headshot, I'm getting plus 50 reload speed, which is at base taking me all the way up to 95. That's so doable. I've almost maxed it out. Perfect. No notes. I know Demo's in there. I'm a big fan of Demo. Rapid Hit's in there as well. Heal Clip in there. Yep, sure. Top tier perks. I really can't complain against any of those. But for me, it's Firefly. Getting to pair Firefly with another damage perk on a meta pulse rifle pick, that I've got to go with that. I just have to. Now, what to pair with Firefly? I think I'm landing on Incandescent because the explosion of Firefly will spread Scorch in a wider area. It's not flashy. It's going to be a workhorse role. And I do believe that Heavy Burst Pulse Rifles, more than any other primary archetype, can be the workhorse. So that's kind of where I'm going. I may still go back to Desperate Measures. I'm just not sure. I think, Desperate Measures is definitely there for prismatic builds. It's also fantastic on Solar, especially Solar Warlock, which is what I'm playing, but Incandescent is also great on Solar Warlock. So they're kind of even in my brain here. Yeah, I think it's going to be Incandescent just to apply Scorch in a wider area to really take advantage of that outstanding Solar subclass, Solar subclasses, and the Solar verbs. But I may go back to Desperate Measures if I can really get some ability stuff looping just for that higher damage bump. Court, how about yourself?
So I crafted this with Firefly and Incandescent, and it's been performing pretty well. But this is the one primary weapon that I may consider Chaos Reshape, just with the nature of this being quite a tanky weapon. It is hitting hard. I can maintain that. I wouldn't be pairing it with Heal Clip, just with the fact that you get a healing effect with ×2. So it would be something like Demo or Firefly. But yeah, this is where my rule of no chaos reshaped on a primary weapon. This is where it's like maybe I will go for Chaos Reshaped. I haven't crafted that. I haven't changed the Firefly and Incandescent role, and the reason why I'm pivoting towards maybe going for Chaos Reshaped is because we've got quite a lot of solar weapons that can perform Heal Clip and Incandescent. I've been enjoying using Authoritative. It is an adaptive, so it's not as potent as Rapid Fires and Heavy Bursts. I still haven't got a good role for Darkest Before, so that's your kind of toss-up of, if you can't get a good Darkest Before, then this would naturally be your option. And I use BXR Battler quite a lot now as the sort of utility weapon with Demo and Incandescent, so I wouldn't go for Demo and Incandescent for Nullify, but it's still an option if I fancy. I've used BXR Battler for quite a while now. I want to give it a little break and use Nullify instead. That's my option. So I like behind the scenes, I've got like a lot of like, do I want to go here? Do I want to go for the classic Heal Clip Incandescent? Do I want to go for Firefly plus Incandescent or Desperate Measures? There's just a lot of kind of options, and I've been using Nullify. It feels really good. I haven't managed to get myself a role for Aisha's Care. Corrasion is my kind of next option for the arc. Again, we were having that conversation last episode with, if you're going for something like Frenzy, what would you'd pair with in column 3? Because a lot of the options are fairly redundant just because of Frenzy giving you that plus 100 handling and plus 100 reload speed. So yeah, there's a lot of conversation in my head with like, what do I want to go for these two heavy burst weapons, and they are hit like trucks. So at the moment, like I said, it is currently heal clip and incandescent, but that may change. We'll see. Sorry, I should say Firefly and incandescent, not heal clip. But again, it may change to heal clip. Just with the nature of heal clip being quite a potent power, a potent perk. At ×2 cure to you, and then cure ×1 to your allies within 50 meters. It's very easy for kind of GM environments. But solid pulse rifle. Yeah.
Similarly, I've been using Firefly and Incandescent on my kind of for fun role. And then on another, I've got kind of the in-game focused one is Under Over and Chaos Reshaped. I've typically been using that. It's what I got in the Adept role, of course, which I know you guys were wondering about. If I had any more of those Adept weapons, I had anything good on them.
He keeps going. Okay. Oh my gosh.
The Under Over is just kind of like the passive, right? It's just more damage against barriers or more damage against shields, which if I'm in an environment where Chaos Reshaped is very strong, then Under Over is probably going to be providing some pretty good utility, because there's probably going to be anti-barrier, or barrier champs that I'm going to be dealing with my pulse rifle, and there's probably a lot of shielded enemies and stuff like that. So that's been my more like in-game one to go with there, and putting an alloy mag on that, just because there's not anything else really helping out my reload speed otherwise. The double explosion from Firefly, this is again, another solid damage scaler on this weapon archetype. But yeah, that double explosion from Incandescent Firefly is what I've been using a lot when I'm on my Pyrogale build, which is all just ignitions. It's a Dragon's Breath, Pyrogale, and a Nullify with Firefly and Incandescent. So the whole build is just focused on scorch damage, ignitions as much as possible, and the double explosion from this thing just fits right in to that category. I'll put the heal clip on the aberrant action, and yeah, kind of similar idea of like I can put a heal clip incandescent on other weapons, and it's very good. And I want to do something that this weapon can do uniquely, just like the bow. Let's focus on like what it really makes it stand out here. And I think that both those trait combos really allow it to stand out. And would definitely recommend Under Over, especially this episode, given as long as it's anti-barrier pulse. Very strong. After that, it will still be fine and good general utility, but things like demo are also really strong, as well as your classic heal clips, rapid hits, all that stuff. Another just absolute powerhouse of a weapon here.
Yeah, I think out of all these weapons, I'd personally try and get a Nullify. Corrasion is quite readily accessible, so maybe if you have one, you don't necessarily need to get a Nullify, but it's our next solar option. Again, if you've got other solar pulse rifles with heal clip and incandescent, I suppose the desire to get a Nullify kind of goes down. But because heavy bursts are, it's in their name. They are they're hitting pretty heavy. All right, let's move over to our next weapon, our next special. And this is Forthcoming Deviance, which is our Void rapid fire glaive. We haven't covered a glaive in some time now. So as a reminder, rapid fire glaives, they are the fastest RPM, fastest reload, and fastest handling intrinsically. They have the largest magazine. However, they have the slowest shield duration. You'll have the shield duration up a lot less time compared to our adaptives and aggressive glaives. And they also have the weakest damage at base. We are going to pair this with Greasy Luck, which is our Ghost of the Deep glaive from many moons ago. Range of 52 for both. That is equals 17.84 meters hip fire and ADS. Or when you like kind of not necessarily aiming down sight, but when you bring up your shields. Handling is 75 versus 61. That is a 0.26 second ready and 0.30 seconds stow. Shield duration of 28 versus 18, so that is 9.78 seconds versus Gracie Luck's 8.63 seconds, and reload of 69 versus 63, and that's 2.29 seconds. So yeah, we haven't seen a lot of glaives recently. At least I don't feel that we've covered a lot of glaives recently. Gracie's Luck was our solar rapid fire glaive that had a few options. We've just been talking about incandescent quite a lot. That obviously had incandescent back then. Greasy Luck, just looking at the comparison, there's an extra trait in each column 3 and 4 compared to Greasy Luck, so you've got a little bit more. This is also going to be craftable if you can get those recipes or the adept version. But anyway, I'm jumping the gun here, so let's look at our haft here. So this being a rapid fire, I think range is not really what we're after, so we're not going for ballistic tuning, we're not going for super cooled accelerator. I'm not really interested in building up our range here. Handling's already pretty high, so we don't need tempered truss rod, which gives us plus 15 handling, minus 5 reload, and minus 5 reload. Reload and minus 5 range. Low impedance windings. Man, I've never read off these names for the hafts for glaives. We do have plus 10 shield duration and plus 5 reload, but again, like you're not really going to benefit from the reload speed. You are getting a minus 10 range malice, but you're only really benefiting from the plus 10 shield duration, which rapid fire glaives just intrinsically a short shield duration anyway, so you're probably adding perhaps half or 1 second to that. Auxiliary reserves is our alternate here with plus 15 reload duration, but that's minus 10 reload speed, which it can afford. A rapid fire, pretty high reload anyway. And then we've got lightweight emitter, which is our plus 10 reload speed and plus 5 handling and minus 10 duration. So yeah, reading off all these, quite interesting. Like, if you want to pivot into shield duration, you can expend that minus 10 reloads with auxiliary reserves plus for that plus 15 shield duration. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure what we'd go for here with a rapid fire. I would probably go for, like, if I really want to focus on shield duration, I'd go for auxiliary. Over in column 2, again, with this being a rapid fire glaive, you don't need to pivot into extended mag. Again, you can afford it. I don't have the numbers, but I think it goes up to 6. I'd need to double check in game. If you want an extra mag, you would also go for something like appended mag, although D2 Foundry's not telling me it's getting increased, but I'm sure it will go up to 6. And again, you've got another kind of like acronomized rounds is here for extra range, but again, you don't necessarily need that for the glaives. We've been a while since I've seen swap mag, and that is your increases the weapon's ready and stow speed by 10%. And then you've got light mag here, which is plus 10 reload speed and plus 5 range. So again, it's probably just pivoting into a magazine perk with appended mag, just to really capitalize on getting as much ammo for the glaive. Reload speed's not really a problem. Over in columns 3 and 4, though, we do have quite a selection of perks. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, lads. This is the first time we've seen reconstruction on a glaive. I feel like, actually, we might have seen recon on a different glaive. I
mean, what was the one from
it is
the
unique.
winter event?
It is unique, actually, to Forthcoming. Reconstruction does not show up on anything else.
Okay. So, with this being a rapid fire frame, if you can get up to that 5 magazine, up to 6, then you will have 12 shots. I think that's actually the one, the adept version that I managed to grab on our very first master challenge. That is what dropped for me. And if I'm pairing that with Hunter, the crab arms, the name escapes
Triton
me
Vice.
at the moment.
Triton Vice.
Yes. Can have quite a lot of fun explosions, and they recently buffed that as well. Triton Vice has kind of a Syntheseps vibe going with the double damage perk, and you can, as long as you're matching the glaive element. Oh no, sorry, I'm mistaken. They changed that where it just works intrinsically. It just matches the elemental explosion effect from Triton Vice. They did change that. So yeah, a lot of shots with your glaive. This being slightly less damage versus adaptives and aggressives, you might not have as much damage, but you'll have the ammo to compensate when you pair it with Reconstruction. You've got your other classic perks here. With Immovable Object, you've got Replenishing Aegis. Over in column 4, we've got Unstoppable Force. Vorpal, that is 15% for specials. Desperate Measure here as well. Close to melee, with this being more of a kind of thinking of a kind of a faster glaive, might have a little bit more potential with this being so glaive projectile kills grant 30% increased glaive melee damage for 10 seconds, and this being more of a handling focused glaive, you can kind of get into the action a little bit more. You do have destabilizing rounds, with this being our void option. Chaos Reshaped is here as well as chain reaction. Now, they did tease that a while back. We'd get chain reaction on different weapons, glaive being one of them, and this is it. This is our first with chain reaction. In terms of what I'd be going for now, the one that I managed to grab, so I got a Grave Robber or Replenishing Aegis or Reconstruction in column 3, and then I had Destabilizing Rounds plus Chaos Reshaped. So, we don't tend to talk about glaives on this podcast a lot, just with, they are quite an acquired taste, not necessarily my acquired taste. I want to play a little bit more with Triton Vice and see how it performs, especially like kind of doubling up with Destabilizing Rounds and Triton Vice. But in terms of like what I'd want to go for, I'm not 100% sure. I need to play around a little bit more with that adept version. Saint, is there anything that you're kind of looking at for this glaive? Anything kind of shouting out for you?
My go-to in glaives has definitely been close to melee. Still really good. There's so many times when I look at traits on glaives and think, man, that would be so good if it would also apply to melee damage. And I know that the risk that they want to avoid is the melee scaling getting out of control and things like that. But yeah, that's what I would say limits things from being like more appealing in the case of something like Chaos Reshaped is just not really quite what I'm looking for. Chain reaction is fun, but I still do not find that the glaive projectiles deal enough damage, especially when you look at how much damage is Forthcoming Deliverance doing? How much damage is my rocket sidearm doing? What are the effects that they have when they detonate? And what does the ammo economy look like between them? So I think the glaive shot itself has really been, I don't know, just like laid out to dry with how good rocket sidearms are in their ammo economy, their damage, and they're really not good at all, and definitely shouldn't be nerfed, which is why only glaive should be buffed. Only buffs, no nerfs. So just give glaives like 4 times as much ammo, and we're talking. We're right there in the mix. Defensively, I think that Chaos Reshaped goes along with the idea of glaives. If you're using something like Replenishing Aegis with Chaos Reshaped, you're going in for a clutch revive. You're using this in a GM to help keep your teammates alive, or you're trying to help somebody through a GM run. I totally get that. I get the defensive capability there. Still not quite strong enough of an argument for me, but There is definitely some value there, and it is quite a weapon by the look of the thing. It is really odd looking, and I'm here for it. That's all I got for forthcoming deviance here. You have any other thoughts?
I think you guys have actually summed up everything I have been thinking about this glaive. Again, I don't think about glaives a whole lot. Like, I want to get a roll of this to use with the Triton Vice, but I haven't had a reason to run glaives in a long time. We just haven't had them as a champion mod. And there's other stuff that I've been using kind of as a special weapon, like rocket sidearms. I guess I will always just use a rocket sidearm, really, when I'm thinking about a special weapon that I want to use. Even up close, I would probably still use it. I know that you can do splash damage with the rocket sidearm to yourself. I've definitely hurt myself and killed myself with that, but I have a hard time thinking, yeah, I really need a glaive in this piece of content. So I haven't used them entirely. I do want to try them out with Triton Vice specifically to just see how that feels, to see if it's fun, in which case I would probably turn to this. I want to get a chain reaction roll for the fun of it. I probably would do reconstruction. Again, those are just unique perks to the glaive, but I'm not in a huge rush to really get on that train. So
Yeah.
sorry, Forthcoming Deviance. You're a glaive. A glaive in a world of rocket sidearms and heavy burst pulse rifles.
It's not your fault.
Well, we'll see.
Go ahead, Gord.
For those listening, I think it would be kind of an open invitation to tell us, or to act, like, kind of show us how you would maybe approach something like Forthcoming Deviance, because I can see there's something there. I'm just not quite sure like how to apply it in like I say real life scenarios, but I just mean in game. Like, I'm sure this is very like sought after glaive for those glaive enthusiasts, especially those in the Discord server. But seeing something like reconstruction, and then this is the first time we've seen chain reaction. Now it's not as potent with special weapons that was nerfed down, just so it could be. They could accommodate something like a glaive or a shotgun. We saw a couple weeks ago with Dead Grammary, but yeah, there's just something like I want to see what this could perform in various activities. And I keep bringing up Triton Vice because it's very applicable for hunters. But yeah, let us know.
Please do. Also, don't let me know your thoughts on the name of our final weapon, because I'm sick and tired of hearing all these jokes. Our final one here is the Waveframe Sword. This is the new frame here. I guess it's Ergo Sum can also get a Waveframe variant, so it is not entirely unique, but this is our only legendary Waveframe Sword, where the heavy attack deploys a shockwave, and then when we get launched in there, then you can do the follow-up swing to do the homing strike. I know people have been testing. So the heavy attack does consume 4 ammo. How is the damage shaping up? Have we seen how the damage shapes up compared to the other sword frames? I know that for Ergo Sum, it's not one of those ones that we just mentioned earlier in the episode, but is that due to Ergo Sum, or is it more due to the fact that the Waveframe itself isn't top dog, I guess, when it comes to frames?
I have heard that, because when I look at the damage of it on paper, it looks really good, like very high as far as legendary swords go. With some of the combos, you can put like really good damage traits on this thing. We'll talk about it in just a second. But I've also heard that it's almost like it's damage instance limited, like an ignition or kinetic tremors or something like that, which is really odd for a legendary weapon. And I don't know what's going on there, but yeah, I've been hearing that it's great when you're alone, and then when you try to start stacking them up, it gets very weird, which I don't know what's going on there. Cord?
Yeah, I've heard that as well. It's kind of like Anarchy or Weatherhorde, where you can only apply like one instance. So I don't know if that's intended or if it's some sort of restriction related to the engine. I don't know. I haven't spent too much time, but I have seen that if just one person has the kind of quote unquote god roll of this, which I'm not 100% sure of, but they can do some serious damage. Like, we're talking like really up there. But again, that's if only one person can do that. I think the reason why it's not applicable for Ergo Sum is because Ergo Sum has a lower damage. It's a special sword, so it's not doing as much damage as this one. But yeah, I've seen footage. I've heard people talk about it. It's just got that unfortunate kind of byproduct of you can only have one person using it. So I think people just naturally gravitate to an exotic sword or bequest or something else, Ergo Sum.
Interesting. Okay. I have not had this one drop yet, so that's why I was asking the two of you. I definitely want to play with this, but yeah, very interesting setup. Well, let's take a look at its stats. Again, we don't have any comparison points because this is a new frame. This does come with a standard impact of 60, provided the D2 Foundry isn't lying to me about any of these values. Also boasts a swing speed of 40, which is pretty standard. Got a charge rate of 20, and then the resistance and endurance values show 0 because those are modified by your guards. Again, with the new frame and the fact that I'm not quite sure if there's anything unique going on here, I would lean the standard Jagged Edge Swordmaster's Guard, but if we find out for some reason through testing that that's not the case, we'll make sure to update you guys in a future episode. But that seems to be unless there's some strange situation where maybe the ammo capacity needs to be increased by a hefty amount to really make it worthwhile, in which case the ammo penalty of Jagged Edge isn't worth it. I don't know, but I'm going to just lean with Jagged Swordmasters for the time being here, and then as we do more testing, we will update you. Moving on to column 3 and 4. Very interesting choices here. This is an arc heavy weapon, but we don't have any arc related perks here, which I'm not too surprised, but also it'd be interesting to see. I guess Eddy Current doesn't really help a whole lot here. Volt Shot would require reload, which isn't possible. Yeah, so there's no Eddy Current, which would be the only viable option. But we've got Strategist. We have a Calm 3 Deconstruct, very rare. We've got Unrelenting, which is always solid when it's in Calm 3. Also Attrition Orbs, very uncommon in Calm 3. And then our standard Sword Fair Duelist Trance, Relentless Strikes, and Tireless Blade. Relentless Strikes is probably, again, just to play it safe, the one pick I'd go with here. Unrelenting could also be quite strong as well with the health regeneration. Again, you're going to be up close using this weapon. You're going to be in the middle of things, having a strong boost of health after you do clear out enough enemies to really hit that activation rank would be quite nice. Deconstruct, I am sure there's some speedrunner out there that is cooking up some absolutely insane strategy with a Deconstruct Summum Bonum that is actually going to just set a new record or insta-melt some boss somewhere. I cannot wait to see that clip when it comes out, but for right now, I don't think we mere mortals need to worry about a Deconstruct Column 3 on a sword, unless you want to go stand right next to all those wonderful Vex structures in the battlegrounds and hope they don't blast you into oblivion while you're whacking away at them. Attrition Orbs in column 3. What are we thinking about this, guys? Are you leaning into the orbs for generating? I mean, again, getting sword hits is not it's not a steep requirement when we think about how you use the weapon that Attrition Orbs is appearing on in this case. Saint, are you leaning towards this for creating orbs of power?
I feel that the requirement is just like a little bit too high. 10 hits, a lot of hits. And there's definitely an appeal there for something like Radiant Orbs, or, supplying your own buff, making sure that your weapon surges are staying up if you're not having a lot of people super around you and that kind of a thing. Maybe I could see that there's something there. I believe that if you have somebody cast Wolfpack rounds for your sword and your landing hits, that those would also count towards Attrition Orbs. And then maybe that there's something there for chaining together high amounts of orb production. But I just don't see it just being super viable. And the Attrition Orbs Enhance gives slightly more super energy than the base version would. I can't remember exactly what the amount of super that you get back, but it's 1%, and then it's going to go up a little bit higher than that. if the enhanced version of attrition orbs maybe changed it from taking 10 hits to 8 hits or something like that, maybe took that hit requirement down just a little bit, and the Wolfpack rounds are coming into play on my sword, and that is all coming together, that there's like a chance there, but other than that, I'm all Relentless Strikes all the way. It's just no thought, easy ammo, higher total damage output, and maybe even, probably even bait and switch, I would say, is viable here, considering how big of a damage buff it is. I don't know if I trust Chaos Reshaped keeping that up as I go into a damage phase. Very possible that you could, depending on what the scenario is, but I think for actual DPS phases, bait and switch is the way safer option than Chaos Reshape, maybe for if you're trying to use Overload Sword in a GM scenario, something like that. It's gonna be a little bit more viable.
It's the frame, though, is what's got me tripped up on attrition orbs, because you've got the shockwave as part of the heavy attack, and you can get the hit requirement does not require direct hits. So I'm trying to think of this in a situation where I hit multiple enemies just with that heavy attack with the shockwave, and then I follow it with the projectile to get another batch of enemies further away. Can I get more hits than the ammo that I'm consuming?
Because you're talking about like all those little damage instances of the wave going out.
That's what I'm
counting as hits. Yeah,
that would count for attrition orbs. So I don't know. I mean, again, this is going to require a very specific setup of enemies for me to pull this off, if it's going to be worth it consistently. But that's kind of my thinking of, okay, so it sounds like you can get attrition orbs pretty quickly if you utilize your heavy attack and then maybe a couple light attacks. You just need to make sure that your shockwave hits multiple enemies, and then that homing strike also hits enemies. And I don't even know if the homing strike is capable of doing a multi-hit scenario here, but yeah, I don't know. Again, Relentless Strikes, everyone knows how Relentless Strikes works. Everyone knows how Unrelenting works. That's probably the safer picks for right now. Calm 4, again, bait and switch. Surrounded is here, and we always talk about Surrounded. It's obviously quite strong, especially Enhanced Surrounded. And there is kind of an interesting thing here where you do have the ranged part of the heavy attack. The homing strike could potentially have the surrounded damage buff if you still have enemies next to you alive while you go and hit a different target. So you could be sending out a surrounded juiced strike to a wider range with this sword, just due to how the frame's heavy attack works, which could be really cool. And then, of course, you do have just surrounded for your nearby enemies that are proccing the perk to immediately melt them with your light attacks as well. That's a very viable option. Bait and switch, of course, could be quite nice as well. Turn back to the sword, launch that heavy attack. The shockwave does the damage proc for bait and switch, and then you get your projectile, that second half of the heavy attack, to actually take advantage of the bait and switch buff. Could be quite strong. Now, Whirlwind is, so that can be light attacks and, yeah, it's powered hits. So it could be light attacks and heavy attack could proc Whirlwind. Okay. That could be interesting as well. I don't know. Again, I got to play with the sword. Cord, have you gotten this to drop? Have you played around with some of the damage perks? Do you have any recommendations?
Yeah, I have got this to drop. I'm just double checking. So yeah, I managed to get an adept version, and I got Deconstruct in Column 3 with Unrelenting or Tireless Blades, so not the best perks, and then One for All and Surrounded. But I did get some standard rolls, and right now I have a bait and switch roll. I haven't really took it out for a little test drive. Yeah, I've got a Relentless Strike Chaos Reshaped one as well. Yeah, I've not took it out for a little test drive, but I was just kind of doing a little bit sleuthing while y'all were talking. So in terms of like the max damage you can do with this, you want to do, so you have to have Jagged Edge. So yeah, you were right, Impetus, insane Jagged Edge. It's a little bit different for Ergo soon, but we'll talk about that in a future episode. With Relentless Strikes plus Enhanced Surrounded, or you want to go down the route of Chaos Reshaped, and this is with the Adept variant, I should have added, because you can apply Adept Impact on swords. Lucent Blades ×3, which is the artifact mod, and then Pack Hunter, which is from Wolfpack rounds from Ergo Sum. So that's your kind of big damage dealing. But again, you can only have one person doing that. And the combo here is 1 heavy into 2 light. And you just keep doing those combos. And that's from Aegis's boss damage sheet, I should add, which is also on the D2 spreadsheet's link tree. So that's probably what we're going to try and aim for. It's just a bit weird with this being a wave sword frame. I would have thought maybe pivoting into more of a kind of add clear build and have something else do damage, but that seems to be the play. Interesting about Chaos Reshaped, because it's 20% at 1 stack and then 35 at 2. And if you can just keep maintaining that, that's obviously going to do a lot more damage than just bait and switch, which you do have to swap in and out. Mm-hmm. Obviously, surrounded, enhanced are big damage, but there's not a lot of encounters where that is kind of applicable. A lot of folks want to clear the adds in many encounters, or you're just not close enough to many adds to spawn that 41.75% damage, which is crazy for a damage perk, but that's the trade-off, is you need adds around you for that to proc. I was going to say actually about the attrition orbs, this seems to be the most applicable sword to have attrition orbs on because of the wave applying like hits to multiple enemies. So there's more likelihood that you can spawn an orb with just one heavy attack with the actual wave. If you can get 10 hits, then yeah, that's completely achievable. So it's 4 ammo per heavy attack. I think attrition orbs may be the play if you're just going for like an add clear builds. But yeah, there's nothing beating Relentless Strikes.
Well, there you have it, folks. A very interesting new addition to to the heavy meta here. Not quite sure how it's going to land kind of moving forward. Obviously, can't wait to see more waveframe swords. I think, it is interesting. Again, they have chain reaction on there. So you think it's spec'd into like add clear, but it feels very much like it's actually quite solid for real damage, for total damage, single target damage, I guess is the more appropriate term. Mm-hmm. But I guess we'll have to wait and see how this shapes out. But very, very cool looking sword. Probably one of the coolest looking swords we have in the game. And it has an Adept version, so you do get access to the Adept Impact mod here. I can't remember, does that... Yeah, that no longer provides... Did that have a Malice? Is there a stat Malice tied to that? Because it no longer will have that, so it is truly just
No, it doesn't have a Malice, okay. No.
So the Adept Mag is like negative handling, I believe. And there's some other stuff like that, but yeah, not on that one.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Which, doesn't apply for swords anyway.
And like you said, not for long.
Not for long.
Yeah.
Saint, I think that's all we have to say for the weapons. You got anything else to add? I guess that's not true. There is one more weapon we do need to talk about, right?
Yeah, Court, I'll toss this one to you. You want to talk about a raid exotic for a moment here?
Yeah, I don't have this, but I can read off from the compendium, which is Euphony. That is our special ammo strand adaptive burst linear fusion rifle, and scoring around about 6 hits within a few seconds of each spawns 3 threadlings, and scoring a precision kill spawns 1 threadling. Threadling hits grant a stack of spindle up to 25 stacks for 10 seconds, and spindle grants 2% damage per stack up to 50% damage increase. An additional threadling or euphony hits refresh the spindle duration, and the spindle persists through stow. I have actually seen this being used for damage for the witness and other scenarios, and it seems to be doing pretty well from my understanding, especially if you are a strand or prismatic warlock with like a threadling builds. I haven't got it. It looks really cool. I want to play around with it. But despite having 6 of those challenges, those exotic increasing challenges, it has not dropped for me after 8 or 9 runs. Very fun exotic.
Yeah, same. None of us has gotten lucky yet, but I'll still be hunting it. I'm looking forward to it.
I will say before we end things. I quickly launched the game because it was annoying me that I didn't know what the true magazine for Forthcoming Deviance. So I launched the game while we're recording live. So with appended mag, it is actually 6, and it goes up to 12 with reconstruction. Extended mag is 7, and it goes up to 14 with reconstruction. So I think the base will be 5. So that goes up to 10.
Well, there you have it.
Yeah, heard. Good to know. All right, well, that has been a long one. It's the first time we've done a raid special in a while. That is all we're going to have for episode 111. Thanks for listening. We also want to thank our audio engineer, Autodidactos, for helping us sound our best each and every episode. Next week, we'll be discussing prismatic, exotic class items, ergo sum, all of that stuff, and kind of a seemingly collective episode all on that one main topic there of building into prismatic. Until then, my name's been Sink Beer. You can find me by that name on social media, hanging out in the Discord server or in-game trying to finish up these last couple of Master Raid challenges. Impetus, where can our listeners find you?
My name is Impetus. You can find me by that name in Discord and in Destiny, where I will be continuing to chase my exotic class items, my seasonal weapons, the red borders, and yeah, ergo sum rolls now that I think about it. I'm also lurking on the Pod versus Enemies Twitter account. Cora, where can our listeners find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Discord and social media as Court Projects. You can find my infographics along with many other Destiny science spreadsheets and documentation over on the Destiny spreadsheets link tree, which will also be in the show notes. You can also find me in-game playing around with that sword, but mostly Nullify and some aberrant action as well. It's going to be a lot of solar fun on my Arc Hunter. But next time, we'll talk about some fun prismatic builds. See you then.